call the meeting to order. I'm going to open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We can just take a moment of silence to reflect on our duties as members of the Town Council and in honor of men and women overseas and at home that are serving in the military and first responders in this country. Thank you. Now we have to make the announcement. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, regarding taping the meeting is being taped by the Town Council and LCAT. Is anybody else taping the meeting?
Chris Gaudreau, reminder.
Thanks, Chris.
Sean Dean, Upland.
Hey, Sean, thank you. Marilyn, you too. Now we're on to Section 4, public comment. Is there anybody that'd like to address the council? Well, that's easy. And we can skip 4 because that's a response to public comment. Bob, you're up.
Thank you. I've got a couple of items on tonight's agenda to talk about. One is to bring the council up to date on the status of a couple of hiring items that we talked about at last meeting. Remembering again that this is a discussion that may not happen at some point in the future. Once the town retains a long-term town manager, that responsibility will fall fully within the town manager. But at the time being, the acting town manager has to go to the council for approval. Two positions I'd like to talk about. The library director position. When we met at the last meeting, the council granted myself authorization to offer a position to either the number 1 or number 2 ranked candidate by the library board of trustees. Unfortunately, I reached out to the number 1 candidate and found that number 1 candidate, after he had a chance to really seriously consider the position, consider the impact that it might have on him and his family, decided to pass on the opportunity. One of the biggest deciding factors, I think, was the fact that he currently has about 18 years in on a 20-year pension program in the New York State County pension program, and that time is not transferable or transportable, and he's only 2 years away from when he would hit his maximum retirement. There are some compensation and benefit issues as well that I think that factored into his decision. And then I did find out that, unfortunately, the number 2 candidate that had been ranked by the Board of Library Trustees some time ago had accepted a position. So at this point, we are not lacking, we lack a strong candidate, and we will have to go back out to a search process again for a library director. At the moment, I am planning, the library trustees are meeting tomorrow, and my goal is to meet with them after the Board of Public Works meeting to really help to reassure them that they remain an important part of the hiring process of the library. My understanding is that they were a little bit concerned about where they might fit into the process, and I expect anyone after me would want to rely on them to a great extent in terms of helping the town select the best candidate for that position. The next item is the building inspector process. I put together a screening committee consisting of myself, Rob McDonald, the town planning director, Paul Healy, who's the building commissioner in Long Meadow, who's been helping us out for the past couple of weeks, and Councilor Michael Kane. And the screening committee met with all the candidates. We met with the second candidate again today because Councilor Kane couldn't make the last meeting. So at this point, everybody in the screening committee has met everyone. I'm happy to report and certainly welcome Councilor Kane to add his own comments, but I think we have 2 very well qualified, very credible candidates. They're both very much interested in the position. So I think we have some options available to us. They both bring their own unique strengths to the process, and where I'm at right now is I want to do a little bit more background checking, talk to a couple more references, would like to be in a position that once I have that information to be able to either make a recommendation to the council if that's what the council would prefer, if the council feels comfortable with my involvement with this screening committee and checking back in with the screening committee before any final decision is made. As you did last meeting, perhaps consider a vote that would authorize us to move forward. based on what we've done today.
What's your thoughts?
I agree with Bob. Both of them bring a different level of skill to the plate. One of them is used to a little bit more of a larger support system with the position that he holds right now working for the city of Springfield. The other applicant works for a community or communities much more like East Long Meadow. One of the applicants has more experience, one has less. One of them is a full-fledged building commissioner. The other one is not. He is still engaged in the educational process, which does need to be completed within an 18-month period. And we're both confident that he would do that, and there would be provisions in his contract if selected as an employee.
Thanks, I appreciate your input. Bob, what's your time frame on, you think,
At this point, it's just a matter of time of making phone calls and getting return phone calls. So I would, like to think that within a week I would have all the information I need to either make a recommendation or move forward with the selection.
All things being equal, would it make sense to go with a candidate who's already certified as a commissioner? To avoid any.
If everything was equal, but as we talked about, the two candidates bring different expertise. One candidate has more experience as a zoning enforcement officer in addition to the building commissioner. That candidate does currently serve as a building commissioner. The state statutes provide for individuals that have as a minimum status as a local inspector to serve as a community's building commissioner, and it's built into the statute, so that's allowed for. It's not anything we would be doing that would be out of the ordinary. So I would say if they were two identical people, sure. They're not, so I think I'd like to be able to consider all the factors and have that one of the factors, but maybe not the only factor that's considered.
So this particular candidate, so he's working towards, how far along he is in terms of his achieving that commissioner level certification, and how long has he been doing the current job?
I believe he's been working for the town that he serves right now for a minimum of a few years.
In his current full-time position, it's been about a year and a half.
Okay.
He has worked with other communities prior to that. He continues to work as a local inspector in two other communities in addition to his full-time assignment.
In regards to the second half of your question, his testing, he already has completed certain requirements to fulfill that obligation of becoming a full-fledged building inspector, or commissioner, I should say. So.
Back to your comment, Mr. Matterson, is when we first started the process, I very much had that same opinion when I took a look at shortlisting the list that we had. That was one of the primary criteria. That was without meeting the individual, that was without really getting to understand the individuals and the capabilities that they had. So it's an important factor. I'm not certain that it's the only factor.
No, I think my preference, I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but my preference, I'd like to, when they have a final candidate, I'd like to hear about it then, rather than authorize it now. I don't know how the rest of the council feels.
Yeah, that's all right. So once he's picked out, I guess we'll bring him back. And,
We'll definitely plan to move ahead, so we'll certainly be in a position by the next council meeting to be able to make a recommendation.
Very good.
The other item I wanted to mention relative to the building inspector is that we do currently have a interim building inspector or building commissioner, and we have filed the paperwork with the state to designate gentleman Mark Hebert, who is the deputy building commissioner in Springfield, as our interim building commissioner. Paul Healy from Long Meadow was doing a great job, gave us just about everything he could possibly give us for about 2.5, almost 3 weeks, but really got to the point where he has a full-time job to do in addition to helping us out, and strongly encouraged us to try to look elsewhere. So we did reach out to a couple of candidates, and Mark Hebert seemed to be a very good candidate. So he is currently retained for up to 20 hours per week as a paid position at the same rate that our former building commissioner was getting paid. So he's going to get us through, and we've told him it's probably a month, give or take, period at this point. So we're still in business and doing what we need to do. The next item I had on the agenda was board and committee compensation. is the council may remember the town charter gives the authority to the town council to set the compensation for any boards and committees in town. And that covers both boards and committees that are currently elected as well as boards and committees that may be appointed in the future. The reason that this is timely is that we need to continue with our business, and the town accountant asked me, how should we handle payments, typically which are issued on a monthly basis to individuals that have been in these positions. And the direction that I've given to her at the time being is to continue to pay per previous practices in advance of being able to take this issue to the council and have the council put some thought into it. So that's one factor, is that we need to continue forward, either making a decision to continue pay in accordance with prior pay practices or to make changes. And then secondly, somewhat of a unique situation is that the former Board of Selectmen served as the Board of Health as well. The compensation for that combined position was always funded through the Board of Selectmen budget. Now that the individuals that are formerly were the Board of Selectmen members continue on as the Board of Health members under the town charter, a decision has to be made. Do they continue to be compensated, and if so, at what rate? And then ultimately, we'll need to make an accounting change where we, if there is compensation, that gets covered and reallocated to the Board of Health, or the health budget, as opposed to the Board of Selectmen budget.
For me, through the chair, I don't believe there was any special specific payment for the Board of Health, because we never got anything beyond our Board of Selectmen pay for being on the Board of Health, so that may be a determining factor too.
Yeah, I know it was dual duty, like you were just technically the Board of Health because you were a selector, I guess. So that's where it was. It really impacts one person at this point, so.
So I did distribute 3 tables to the council. The first table I put together is a summary what current or fiscal 16 compensation has been for the boards that were compensated. And those boards included the Board of Assessors, the Board of Public Works, the Planning Board, the School Committee, and the Board of Selectmen, who also again served as the Board of Health. Then looking forward, I put together 2 more tables that using the information in the latest town report, and so some of these names may have changed a little bit since the town report was published, put together what I think is the breakdown of boards or committees that are either required by statute, and I think the town charter covered those pretty well, but there are also some other boards that, for funding agency purposes, either are required to be in place or are recommended to be in place. And then there's another group of committees that are in place either for the town's convenience. The town decided, for instance, it would like some outside input from people that are interested in the Brown Farm, so they created a Brown Farm committee as an example. So there's a number of those committees as well that exist that may not serve a statutory or regulatory purpose, but may continue to serve a function to the town going forward. So short term, I guess I would like to get some sort of direction from the council about its preferences continuing forward with pay practices for the committees and boards that have been paid in the past, what your preference is, and then whether or not you want to consider any stipend for the Board of Health that was formerly compensated via the Board of Selectmen.
So is it my understanding that all the paid positions have been appropriated for FY16?
Yes, they are.
So is it necessary to, so are we really talking about leaving that in place and then appropriating something?
Where the money's been appropriated and through town meeting, it's there, so it's not, people that are serving on those boards are gonna keep compensated as the same as they were prior. So at this point, I mean, we can continue that, and
So is it really one person who's now on the Board of Health who's not being compensated?
correct.
Probably should be.
Right.
So that's the only one that's not appropriated?
The Board of Health was absorbed as part of the Board of Selectmen, not compensated. And we take, if we already have it set up for fiscal 17, that there's a budget for the selectmen. I mean, as a temporary thing, we can take the budget, whatever amongst the 3 and divide it among 6. I mean, obviously we can amp it up for a future budget, but that might be the cleanest way to do it.
Or not. I don't know. What were you guys getting, about a couple thousand a year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
20 years, 25.
I'm just trying to find a way to make it
That's
work,
right,
because right now we have a selectmen's compensation budget.
Right,
And we have nothing allocated specifically for the Board of Health.
correct.
Right, because that was sort of.
It was a dual role. They got,
Exactly.
and you couldn't, and you honestly, you couldn't take the pay twice. So
Right.
there was no need to compensate the Board of Health because the Board of Health was the selectmen, and you were already giving them their stipend.
I mean, it's in the, if our budget already has a, formally known as, unless we also have, there's part of the town meeting budget in here too. So that could be it, then we can work a compensation based on what money we have to work with for fiscal 17. I mean, because we have a town meeting budget, we have a Board of Selectmen budget, we're obviously gonna have a new town manager budget, that's gonna be coming up. So I'm just, as far as putting numbers together, it's just a function of what numbers do we have to work with. I mean, money-wise, I think we have to look at what our budgets are. Or we don't have a town moderator position anymore, so that's here.
That's $600.
Well, I know, and
Yeah,
I remember,
there's-
trust me, I remember the comments,
Jim, yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
yes.
yeah.
So,
Well, we've got 2/3 of the board of health are
you guys.
currently being
Alright.
paid as selectmen, so I think it's just a matter of determining what the third person on the board of health, who if I understand correctly, is only going to be temporary anyways, from what I've heard.
I actually talked to him this morning, I ran into him in town hall, and he said that if he's not compensated, then he has no interest in serving, but
Okay.
it's neither here nor there.
Okay.
You know what I mean? If he doesn't wanna serve, that's certainly up to him.
Yeah.
But the problem then becomes, it's supposed to be 3.
This was a topic of discussion when the charter was developed, drafted. And, although obviously funding is obviously up to this council, it was also, part of the discussion was that folks that currently serve in these elected positions, it's clear in the charter that they serve out their elected term, and then they could be reappointed afterwards or not, but they serve out their elected term. We didn't think it appropriate to designate a different amount, and that was the expectation when they ran for office. So, to Joe's point, the money's appropriated, that was the expectation when those people ran. I would disagree that currently the Board of Health is not being compensated at all because it's a selectmen's stipend. It's a selectmen's stipend. So that I think we do have to take up as a council. The other one, quite frankly, is council. There's no pay for elected council, and it was clearly left open to the council in the charter. So those are really the 2 areas. My thought on longer term is that a lot of these boards and committees, after they're evaluated and whatnot by the town manager, when we have a permanent town manager, he actually may eliminate some. They may actually go away, some of them. So I would leave further compensation issues up to that individual, to bring forward to us if he sees fit. But so if I'm understanding about it, really the only 2 issues that need to be addressed are whether the council wants to receive any stipend and the Board of Health.
Well, that's the third actually, because number one is, do we continue with past pay practices? Because without action by the council, the reality is we shouldn't be paying anybody.
No, that's not true. It was acted upon at the town meeting.
Right.
It was acted upon by the legislative body at the time, which was the town
Correct.
meeting. So it's not invalid.
Plus, you just said through the council rules that they get paid for their term. Or
Yeah.
yeah.
They serve out their term, so through the charter. So it's not invalid at all. It was.
No, I'm not saying it's valid, but the town meeting approves a budget. They don't approve salaries per individual. Same thing with unions. They approve a salary budget. The decision as to how to allocate that salary budget, I think, is a council decision as called out in the town charter.
No, it was presented as part of the budget,
Okay.
which is approved and appropriated at town meeting. We can, as the legislative body now, we could alter it if we see fit, but we don't need to take any action for them to receive the compensation. That was already fixed at the annual town meeting.
So then I guess your question or your point was 2 issues. Does the council receive compensation? I agree that that's an open question. And then is the Board of Health dealt with in some manner, since it was not compensated for in the past?
So I guess I would turn to the 2 guys that are on the Board of Health, at least for the short term. I have no idea what the workload is like. I have no idea how much time, effort, and whatnot is put into it.
Quite frankly, I think it's gonna
Increase.
one of the, yeah, because we're gonna have to do, we did most Board of Health issues were resolved or approved or whatever you wanna call it, voted on at the selectmen's meeting.
Right.
So now that's just a separate meeting, I think that's the end of the world. And, you know, I don't mind staying there, but, it's just, I don't mind doing it, it's not, we're looking at ways to actually give the director position a little, to give her the authority that she has under statute and allow her to use that, which we're not doing as a Board of Selectmen. We did a lot of things, engaged in a lot of, approving permits and so on and so forth that by state statute could have been done in the office. So with the creation of that position, and of course that piece of that was new and sort of learning curve. So I don't know exactly going forward how much work there's going to be. I mean, I know there is an extra meeting, but again, we actually have a meeting this week where we're trying to figure out all those small issues, like what can she actually do by statute as the director and so on and so forth.
And,
So-
and if I did through the chair,
Yeah.
Jumping ahead to Bob's next presentation, you've got the issued licenses and permits, and you'll see now, because the town council does like maybe the first 7 or 8, and then all the next licenses, permits, say about 20, 25 of them are all through the Board of Health. So that's an additional duty that we would have done in our meetings, at the Board of Selectmen meetings, that are now being done in a separate meeting by the Board of Health, so, that's, just something else to take into consideration.
So it would
I mean-
then be appropriate then to just leave the compensation as is, just change it, reappropriate it to the Board of Health? At
Well,
least until
also-
such time as that board is reorganized.
Well, also,
Right.
beside that, the fact that you were saying that the charter provides for the people to play out their term,
Yeah.
all 3 of the members, the earliest, the 3rd member of the Board of Health wouldn't have expired until next April as far as the term. So if you stick with that and stick with the compensation, it makes sense that that's the easiest way to do it.
So, I guess a motion would be appropriate then.
And if I can make
Go
one more
ahead.
comment, I know it's a giant pay, and I know I hate to take the cut, but I don't think, no longer being chairman, I would have no problem dropping down to the pay that the other 2 board members got, because I happen to be in the chairman spot at the end of that form of government. I don't think it should entitle me to the additional bump for 2 more years, so.
Go ahead.
You'll
Yeah,
entertain
I'll
a motion?
entertain a
All right.
motion at
So
this
that,
point.
with that, then I would move that the Board of Health, 3 members of the Board of Health be compensated at a figure of $2,000 annually each, and that that amount is funded, transferred appropriately from the Selectmen's stipend account to the Board of Health stipend account.
So,
So moved.
Second.
moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Bob?
Just one thought looking ahead, in the event that the council does approve compensation for council members, there'll be an issue that you'll have to deal with at that point, where you might have a counselor serving also as a Board of Health, and then we get into the issue of compensation for 2 positions. So that's a future issue, but it may be something we need to deal with in the future.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now, we're at 6:30, so I just want to know if we should.
Your preference, I can stop and pick up later, or I can continue quickly.
I think we should stop.
All right, yeah, we'll stop for now.
Okay.
And you want to take like a 3-minute break to get prepared, or is
So
anybody?
moved.
Oh, for a,
Recess?
Yeah, 3-minute recess? Can we
Yeah,
take
sure.
a 3-minute
So
recess?
moved.
okay,
Second?
second.
Any further discussion? All right, we're gonna take a 3-minute recess, and we'll come back and we'll have our first round of interviews. Call the meeting back to order, and quickly, we just have to readdress one item before we get to you. If you don't mind waiting for one more second.
Yeah,
Not a problem,
Mr.
Mr.
President, I move for a reconsideration of the previous vote.
Second.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
The purpose of, just so that, because I see some council members looking at us, it was called to our attention, and rightfully so, that the two members of the council that also serve on the Board of Health voted on the matter, and they serve to benefit from it. So we brought it up for reconsideration, so the vote was taken without their participation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jim. All right, so now, we have our first candidate.
Do we have to
Are you gonna
now
vote?
vote for it?
Yeah,
You revote?
We have to
You want us to
vote.
leave?
No, I don't see the need. Just if you recuse yourself, that's,
All right.
I think, adequate. So Tom, do you have the wording of the motion I made so that it's the same motion?
That one.
Yeah, and motion that 3 Board of Health members will make $1,000 each.
No. So I move that the Board of Health members be compensated not to exceed $2,000 each, and further that the money allocated for the Board of Selectmen be transferred for compensation for the Board of Health.
Second.
I believe that was the motion, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So moved and seconded. Any further discussion? I'm going to abstain, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, there we go. Thank you.
Two abstentions.
2 abstentions.
Yes, yes, sir.
No.
All right, now we're going to move on to the business of the day.
Kevin, if you want us to do a quick background.
Yeah, if you could do that, Joe.
So, David is our first candidate. Thank you for coming tonight. Appreciate you joining us and putting your name in for consideration for the interim town manager. I've had the luxury of speaking extensively with David and checking his references, provided those to the council, so you should have a copy of his resume, his written references that he provided, and then a summary of the references that I was able to contact, which will include most of them. So we've asked David to come today. We have a series of questions that we'll ask you, but we did give David one question to prepare in advance. So Kevin, if you want to start there and then facilitate, the interview process from that point forward.
So we're gonna have a section of, Joe, you tell them which question you did.
Yep, this is the very first one.
Very
Yeah,
first
so if you
question.
wanted to read that one off, then he can explain what he's doing, introduce himself, and kind of go from there.
Just to give you a little bit of where we're headed here, we're gonna have nine questions for you. Obviously, one we gave you to provide us with an answer with originally. I'll ask the questions, the counselors, if they have follow-up questions, feel free to interact with them as they ask you follow-ups, and just make yourself comfortable. The first question that we sent and allowed you to prepare is, if selected, what would be your plan for the first 30 days? So if you could just touch on that for us.
Thank you, Mr. President, through you to the rest of the council. Thank you for having me. I presented you with some bullet points, 5 pages, broken down in bullet points, and I'll just go off of them. First, I gave a very brief preamble. East Longmeadow is at the genesis of a new form of government. Not only is the town manager a new hire, but the whole form of government is new as well. 4 months to get set up and running will take expertise, dedication, and commitment. I've chosen this challenge because of the unique attributes of this endeavor. My entire professional career has been preparation for such an opportunity. I have 20 years experience as a municipal employment and land use attorney, 10 years experience as a public administrator handling every facet of the workings of town government and running a town. I hold a bachelor's degree in political science, a master's degree in public administration, and a Juris Doctorate. My unique skill set of working on both sides of the theory and practice gives me perspective to your new government up and running seamlessly. I look forward to working with the council to see that this transition is efficient, effective, and being an integral partner with you in this endeavor. I thank you for this opportunity. Now, that being said, if you look at the first page of bullet points, it's very important to realize that looking at the books doesn't tell you everything. And I've already looked at your books. I've already met with many of your people that work with the books, and there's reasons behind everything. That's what you need to get to know. So the first thing to know in order to get a seamless transition, you need to know why things are what they are and what are the major issues facing the town. I need to know what the council is being kept up at night about. Prioritize those issues. First, find out why things are the way they are, then set up standards and procedures for an efficient, economic, equitable, participatory, transparent, and sustainable government. The reason I say that is because you can't establish and utilize best practice standards to cover all scenarios. You just can't. You have to know why things are the way they are in order to structure a best practice around that scenario. An example that I found in your management letter, you have numerous deficit accounts. They don't explain why, but they're there. I need to know why and how and what the reason was before I could set up a best practice standard with quantifiable benchmarks to get that in line. Obviously, it's something that needs to be addressed, but you need to know the reasons behind it before you can address it. That being said, if you look at the next bullet point, best practices, you set up quantifiable benchmarks and standards. You use standards and procedures, cost municipal services, and the Samuelson rule. If you look at that jumbled equation, that actually is what public administration is. Public administration is a science. It's actually math. And I have a master's degree in this. That one thing you're looking at right there tells you how much government is the right amount of government. Tells you how much services is the right amount of services. Tells you what to spend and how much to spend and why you're spending too much and too little. There actually is an equation that you can figure it out. You have to use quantifiable and quantifiable and also qualifiable data, but you can get there. In order to do that, you have to review your organizational structure. You need to make adjustments accordingly. It's a new government system, and you need to start with an audit. You need to look at where you are and where you want to go, and then from there, you set up the structures and get it ready and in place for the next full-time manager. So, in short, before I go forward, the short answer is the first 30 days is going to be spent structuring everything so we can run forward, and in 4 months' time have this business running seamlessly. Now, if you look at the next page, you need to focus on getting the systems established and running efficiently. I've already gotten started on this even before being asked this question. Before I spoke to Councilman Ford, I had already met with the town accountant. I had already met with staff and some department heads. I've already obtained the auditor's management letter. It's right here. I've already gone through it, fine-tooth comb. It needs to be updated. I've already familiarized myself with the annual town report. It's right there. I've already familiarized myself with the capital plan and with the charter. I noticed immediately that you didn't have a master plan. And that's something, long-range wise, you need to have a master plan. You have a fantastic capital plan. I have some ideas as to how to, massage it a little bit, but it's a very good start. But you don't have a master plan, and you ought to. It's something that will help you prepare going forward and make your town the way you want your town to be. You don't let it just happen, you plan for it. You need to maximize the time, because time is precious. I'll meet with every single department head, I'll set up strategic plans, and I'll move forward. I'll use the best practices and cost management assumptions. I'm going to use that Samuelson rule that I had mentioned before and municipal services costing. Although the assumption is to have a financial budgetary slant, I'm not going to approach it with blinders. Things add up to money, but they're not everything. It's not the be-all and end-all. I want to meet with the auditors, I want to update the management letter, I want to meet with the assessors, get future forecasts. I want to meet with the collector, the treasurer, to see the state of the town. I want to meet with the appropriations committee. Every department has a need. Every department is symbiotic and necessary to have a seamless flow of town services. But that leaves a lot still that isn't answered. There are other considerations. I'd want to talk to town council. I want to know what litigations are ongoing. I want to know what negotiations are ongoing. Avoiding litigation, avoiding liability, that saves you money. When you're spending money on these things, it's actually a negative. You can avoid it by actually putting a few pennies into avoidance. You can save yourself a lot of money in the long range. For long range plans, I'd want a master plan implementation committee. I'd start a committee. I'd get the committee looking at what you want for your town, and then let's plan for it. I'd want a revenue generation committee. I've had these two committees in the past. I've done these committees. Revenue generation committees come up with fantastic ideas of how to generate revenue that doesn't involve tax dollars. And I could give you a long list of where I've raised millions of dollars without 1 red cent of tax money. Sustainable Strategic Development Committee, I'd want to set that up as well, because you need to plan for development, you need to plan for sustainable development. That's all part of your master plan. You want it to be the way you want it to be, so that you have your town the way you have your town, and it's sustainable. So that segues into 3 issues that I see facing the town. There's a citizen trust in government issue, there's a setting up procedures and standards budgetary cycle issue, and there's auditing the town's structural standards and procedures, protocols, and security. Number 1, transparency, citizen trust, and appearances. There was a change in government that indicated that the citizens were upset with the prior form of government. If you look at any of the news articles, anyone can read that there was dissatisfaction with votes and procedures. There was dissatisfaction with people feeling frustration and distrust. There were numerous cases of people mentioning that the minutes were not up to date, minutes were not self-explanatory or detailed enough. I implemented in Rehoboth modern technology that connects your minutes to the tape to all your documents. If you want to actually do a Boolean search, just do a little word search, you can scroll right to that portion of any tape where the discussion is and get the PDF of the file, of the minutes, of the document, of the dog license, of the plan. It's all interchangeable. It's not difficult. I implemented it in the town I was in before. Modern technology is there. It takes the middleman right out of it. So if someone wants to see a conversation about accidents on Middleborough Street or whatever, they literally just type in accidents, Middleborough Street. Every conversation at the planning board, the zoning board, the board of selectmen will come up. All the GPS mapping will come up, all the dog licenses, all the arrests, everything having to do with that area comes right up, and they can just print it. It's all public information. You can make it available with keystrokes and avoids all the middlemen, keeps people very happy. That's a best practice. It's a best practice for transparency and responsiveness and public participation. People like to participate in their government. They can literally save you time by not having you going through all your files just by, they want a dog license, just type in, they want a dog license, there it is. You can set up protocols, procedures, and standards. The management letter highlights some of these areas that require some attention. I would like to know where we are in the process. Well, again, need to update it. I want to know how far along we are. I'd also want to do internal audits. I'm familiar with them, I've done them. We would want to do them. We'd want to have every department run an internal audit. It's a best practice standard. It makes for efficient and economic and equitable systems. You can see what's working, what's not working. Let's make it better. The last one is security. Risk aversion is a very cost-effective, efficient way to avoid liability. I made some observations when I walked around. I didn't see a single lock bar on any file cabinet, not one. Any one of us can call up Staples or WB Mason and call up and get a key for any one of those file cabinets. All you have to do is look at the number on the file cabinet, call Staples, they'll send you a key. You can get an $11 lock bar, lock it right up. I didn't see any fireproof cabinets. If any of those permanent records go up in flames, someone's responsible. Personnel records are not up to date according to the Appropriation Committee minutes of 9/15/15. So that's liability, and that comes back on the town. Personnel records not being up to date comes back on the town. These are best practices that we can improve very easily. Those lock bars are $11. We can individually put alarms on every room very inexpensively. I did it in my town for $0. We went out for a bid, and we had alarm companies fighting to do it. They wanted to be the alarm company that put the alarm in town hall. We actually got an alarm for 3 years for free. Examples in the management letter, the turnover sheets, the cash reconciliation, and the personal file deficiencies. That's what they saw. Those are the ones, observations I see. So where are the areas of potential improvement? Physical security, that I was just talking about. Let's alarm each room individually. We can limit access. It's very inexpensive. It's very quick. You can see who has been in what room just by their alarm code. Publication of personal contact information. I'm sure it's done all the time, but having the police don't put their phone number in the town meeting minutes or in the annual report. They don't put their address. Why are all the other town people who have volunteered have their phone number and their address? It invites harassment of officials. It deters people from volunteering. Instead, a better practice is to use a liaison system. Everyone has a liaison in in town hall, whether it's a department head for that area or whomever it is. People can call the liaison, can email the liaison. The liaison can then contact that individual, and then that person can call from a secure line, a line that has a private number. Giving out people's phone numbers just offers a liability that we don't want to take on, because those liabilities, they're agents of the town, they're liabilities that fall onto the town. Personal information, there are no lock bars, no fire safes. Mass General Law, Chapter 93H is very scary. It makes all of us personally liable if personal information gets out. So if someone's personal information gets out, we're liable for it. We have to take steps to prevent that. Lock bar and some type of alarm system, these are versions that can save a lot of liabilities. I guarantee all of us would be indemnified. I guarantee all of us would be covered by insurance. I guarantee all of us would be covered by town council protecting us through the lawsuit. But that would be a lawsuit, and that would be a lot of money against the town. So that being the case, just $11 worth of a lock bar, and you don't have to worry about it. Again, confidential files and public records requests. This is something that's been very prevalent in the news recently with the Secretary of State Clinton. I was talking about this in 2001. I made sure every single person in town had a town cell phone. I made sure every single person in town, department heads, I'm not talking about every worker, had a town cell phone issued to them, had a laptop issued to them, had an email issued to them. Because the second you use your cell phone is now a public document. I can ask for all of your personal cell phone records, and you have to give them to me. And if you redact them, I could get upset. You don't want to be giving me your personal cell phone records. You do not want to give me your email records. You do not want to give me any of those files. So we give you an email address, we give you a cell phone, we give you a laptop, and we tell you, use these for town business. Don't use your personal cell phone. Is it a little bit more expensive? Yeah, but in the long run, it saves a lot of money. Because when someone asks to have phone records from any one of you going back 3 years, that's going to cost a lot of money in a lawsuit. Lastly, I just put, this is your budget. I just put it on a pie sheet. It's transparent. It's very colorful. It shows what your budget is. It will make people happy. It's just one quick little change. You just literally say print a pie chart. And instead of just giving people numbers, they can see a nice pretty chart and know how much money you're spending on things. That's what I would do in the first 30 days. Basically, I would get all your structures up and running. What I noticed immediately, I talked to you about right now, and that was 2 hours in town hall talking to people and walking around and seeing things. I'm sure I'd find a lot more if I actually did an audit. So thank you for that opportunity to address those things.
Anybody have any? Paul?
Just one, what management letter are you, what year, what issue?
Management letter that I got was the last one, Town of East Long Meadow Management Letter for the year ending June 30th, 2015. That's the one that was available to me. And I went through it, and it's a very good management letter. There are some things I'd just like to see where we are in them. I imagine some of these things have already been addressed. And I imagine there are new things that, you know, aren't obviously listed here. That's why one of the first things I would want to do is meet with the auditors. I'd want to sit down with the auditors. I want to sit down with town council, obviously have a long sit down with all the internal budgetary departments, you know, the collectors and the treasurer and the accountant, you know, all of that.
It is updated annually. In fact, we go through the process in August.
Oh, I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do. This is the one I had access to.
Yeah, it's the last one that was issued.
Right.
That's the one,
Okay.
the next one will be issued for FY16.
Okay.
I did have a quick question. So you said municipal government is a science.
Yes, sir.
Where does customer service fit?
That's a fantastic question. That's why it is a master's in public administration and not a master's in public business and business administration. It's an MPA, not an MBA, because public is part of it. And I have a master's in public administration, not a master's in business administration. So public is definitely part of the mindset. You have to be responsive, you have to be responsible, you have to be transparent, you have to be equal and equitable and efficient. Those are the 7 tenets of public administration. And part of that is economic and efficient. And the economic and efficient is the math. So that is unto itself good government. If you're wasteful, you're not doing good government. So thank you.
All right. What is your leadership philosophy?
My leadership philosophy is basically I like to surround myself with the most qualified people I can find. I like to give them the ability to do their job, give them the tools that they need, give them the authority to do their job, delegate that to them, let them do their job, but the buck stops here. I do everything through after-action reports, whether it's serious discussions in meetings or whether it's just a discussion at the end of the day, hey, did you make that phone call to the printer? But everything has an action report. Everything has, where are we? I love whiteboards, and whiteboards will be all over my office. I'll have whiteboards with check marks all over the place, following things along. So my management style is I would have someone on that whiteboard with whatever issue was going on, and I'd be following it through the process. And like I said, it could be something as simple as, hey, could you call this person for me? And at the end of the day, did you call them? Or it could be, you know, we're putting in some sewerage lines, and I'm meeting with the Public Works and whomever else on a weekly basis to make sure that we're moving along, you know, or if there's an issue, we have addressed it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How will you develop relationships with department heads, employees, this council, and unions? And can you give us an example of how you built relationships in the past positions?
It's all about relationships. This job is all about relationships, and it's about trust, and it's about transparency. I can answer the last part first, and then I'll go backwards. I negotiated numerous contracts with 5 independent unions, and at one point in time, I had a statutorily protected salary under Chapter 41 and 108N. 41 108N, my salary was 100% guaranteed. I gave back 20%. I stood up and said, if I'm going to be level funding all these other unions and asking them to contribute, I can't stand in front of you and say I'm taking my raise. Not only am I not taking a raise, I'm going to give back 20%. That builds trust, that builds camaraderie, that builds good faith going forward. And when it came time to negotiate again during the recession, we were able to avoid any layoffs. We were able to avoid any slowdowns, any shutting downs of departments. We didn't even, reduce hours. And it was because everyone came to the table and acted in good faith for the town, because they had seen me do it in the past, and they knew I was a straight shooter. When I come to you and I say, this is what we have to offer, this is what we have, here's the pie, there's no smoke, there's no mirrors, everything gets divided up equally, per what we negotiate. That's how I dealt with the unions, and I never had a single time that we had to go to arbitration, never had a walkout or a blue flu or anything. As for the other, we celebrated birthdays, we celebrated anniversary dates, someone 5 years, 10 years. No one wants to come to work and not enjoy their work. It becomes part of your everyday routine. We become like family. And I had said to Councilman Ford, the next job that I take, I left my last job after 10 years and it wasn't on my own fruition. I would have been there still. I'm not the type of person that you see most administrators 3 years here and 2 years there, and they're moving up and they're looking for the better opportunity. No, I have 15 to 20 years left before I retire, and I plan on retiring 1, maybe 2 jobs. I'm going to do 15 to 20 years. I'm going to be part of the community. I'm going to be part of the walls. People are going to know me. They're going to know my family. They're going to know what I do and where I like to spend my free time. That's how you get relationships. Yeah, we had cookouts. We had awards ceremonies. You end up making relationships that are meaningful, and people always come right to the forefront to do everything for you. It's not really hard. Relationships matter.
I just don't want to miss anybody if they have any questions.
Does anyone else have a question? Just have one quick one then. Changing government, which you
Yes, sir.
all know. So you have department heads that have worked in silos and had quite a bit of autonomy. So how do you help them do their job better by taking some of this responsibility, some of this mundane responsibility off of their plate on a day-to-day basis? So how do you build trust with them and prove that this is a positive for them to focus on their core responsibilities? What would you do, to help that transition or ease that transition?
I think your question has part of the answer within it. The mundane day-to-day, once people see that they're actually able to utilize their skill set to their full potential and have mundane day-to-day fall into place, whether it be through technology or whether it be through consolidation or whatever the issue is, it builds trust. Now, coming in right from the get-go, I'm sure there's going to be pushback. I'm not known to them. I have no rapport with them. I have no goodwill at this point. I haven't earned any. But I would hope that people come with an open mind and see what I've done in the past and see that I understand from a personal level that when responsibilities and or positions are moved around, it affects your life. I've lived it, and it's never fun. You have to validate the person. You have to validate their concerns, and then you help them move forward by showing them that their skill set is much more efficiently and effectively utilized at a higher level or a different level. That's how I go about it, and it's not something you just have a conversation about. It literally is a process. It's through meetings, it's through counseling, and it's a partnership. It's not a dictatorship. It's a partnership.
What information do you think the town council needs to have concerning day-to-day operations and ongoing projects?
Pardon me, could you repeat that, Mr. President? I didn't hear you.
What information do you think the town council needs to have concerning day-to-day operations and then ongoing projects?
Day-to-day and ongoing. Ongoing, I'll answer first. I would have a standard report that would go to you on a standard time frame of your choosing. If you want it weekly, if you want it bi-weekly, if you want it monthly. That report would be supplemented whenever necessary. If there were any issues that needed more prompt attention. That report would run in line with your meetings. So in time for your meetings, if you're meeting on Tuesday, perhaps Friday before, you'd get the report. That would give you an opportunity to ask questions, and I could supplement the questions and, you know, bring a better report to the meeting. As for day-to-day, I would like to start with a liaison system. There's 7 members here. You all have 7 independent lives, 7 independent jobs. I'd want to do a liaison system. Each one of you have areas that you focus on in particular and bring that back to the council. So that way I could focus with whomever, the police issues with you, Mr. Madison, fire issues maybe goes with police issues, DPW issues maybe Mr. Ford, that would be with you. So if there was something that had to do with Board of Health, maybe I'd be going with Mr. Kane. So I'd just pick up the phone, I'd call the one individual, I'd say, here's what's going on, you need to know about this. And if that council member thought it was important to, you know, have a meeting or bring everyone up to speed on it, we would do that. But if that council member, as a liaison for that area, says, okay, thank you, you know, bring the whole board up to date on our next meeting. So that would be how I would like to do it. I don't know if that's the preference of the board, but that's how I would present my opinion to you and take feedback. I think it's efficient, it's effective, and it helps things move forward.
Explain a time that you've had to promote an idea to a group, specifically on an unpopular project or idea, and how did you motivate them or persuade them?
We had cell towers in town that were going to be built literally 50 feet outside of someone's bathroom window. Basically, the cell tower company could prove that they had to be in that area of town in order to get a signal, and FAA rules and regs said that they could build there, you know, they didn't have to do what we wanted them to do. I approached the cell tower company and I said, if you give me 6 months, I'll be able to get you in that same neighborhood as a matter of right without having to go through a special permit. And they looked at me and they said, how are you going to do that? I said, I am going to rezone that area so that town-owned land is zoned for a cell tower. And town-owned land, by a matter of right, you can put a cell tower if I put out a bid for one. And so I zoned in that neighborhood a cell tower. I put it the way I wanted it, zigzagged it way off in the woods so you can't see it. It wasn't outside of somebody's window. The cell tower company was able to build their tower in a matter of 6 months instead of going through 100 different meetings and spend a lot on attorney's fees. And we ended up owning the land, and we ended up getting co-location fees. So not only did the cell tower company go up quickly with their building, not only did the community get exactly what they wanted, they didn't have any cell tower in their backyard, but we collect $150,000 a year for just contract administration. I can give you numerous examples. I told you I've raised millions of dollars. I'm an attorney. I have a lot of land use. I built an entire football, baseball complex, 0 tax dollars. 100% football, baseball complex with dugouts, with a track around the outside, with lighting, with sprinklers, with 18 inches of beautiful loam, all the trees cut. We used 0 tax dollars. We did it with in-kind services. We did it with land swaps. We did it with a lease to Pop Warner from town land. We worked it all out. Beautiful football, baseball complex, didn't cost the town a penny. Did the same exact thing with a tot playground. I got an $18,000 DEP fine turned into millions of dollars worth of solar voltaic grants. And I can take all night to explain all these things, but these are examples of how having an attorney who knows how to utilize the rules and the regs and having an attorney who is a public administrator is beneficial. And I think especially when you're trying to set up your form of government, this particular job I've been waiting for my whole entire career. This is exactly what I've looked for. And if you look at my resume, I've given seminars on organizational structure of governments. It's right there on my resume.
I want to follow up on that if I can. I just want to turn that a little bit. Let's imagine for a moment that the council takes some action that's not particularly popular with the department heads or with the town employees, or with the town manager for that matter. How do you motivate them to carry out that decision that's been made, or to execute that decision that's been made, or to, I guess, I'm looking more, how do you deal with it with the people aspect of it, not the legal
Certainly.
aspect of it?
Certainly. Everything in public administration is public. People matter. Participation matters. Transparency matters. Equity matters. They're tenets of public administration. And as for the people involved in the day-to-day, they need to buy in, and they need to understand that we're looking for the best interest of the town. And as long as everyone is transparent and honest and open, and there's no funny dealings, and everyone has a stake in it, every stakeholder needs to be brought to the table and heard. People need to be validated, their issues need to be heard and be part of the process. It's public participation. It's one of the 7 tenets. In public participation, you give people a voice to be part of the process. And so long as they're part of the process, they buy into the process. An example of this is whenever I have a very difficult choice to make, I'll bring all the stakeholders in and I'll give them sticky notes. And I'll have them write one idea on a sticky note. And then we take all of those ideas and we put them up on the wall. And they're anonymous. We don't know who wrote what sticky note. And we put the sticky notes into groups of what areas they match, maybe overlap. Then we go with what can happen, what should happen, what absolutely is a pipe dream, and everyone sees it. And it doesn't matter who wrote what. People realize they were part of the discussion. They can argue any one of those sticky notes to its end. And once they're part of that process, they're less frustrated and they buy in more. So the public participation portion of it is key in order to get people to buy into what needs to happen. And not every decision is popular and not every decision is fun. But as long as you feel like you've had a portion of the process, more times than not, people buy in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What do you consider to be one of the biggest challenges transitioning to our new form of government?
The biggest challenges of the transition to the new form of government. I think what Councilman Ford raised and what Councilman Madison raised, they're hitting the nail on the head. It's scary. It's scary. People wanted a change, you have a change, but now those affected by the change have to adopt it. And those people affected by the change are going to have to be heard. I would not come in here with a broom and just start sweeping people aside. I would bring every stakeholder to the table, including the council, every department head, and make sure that we have a clear plan, and that the plan is not only the best plan for the town, but it takes into consideration all of the stakeholders. The stakeholders being the school department, the citizens, the parents, the workers, the children. Everyone is a stakeholder that you need to look at. How does this affect all of us? And then you move forward. So what is the hardest, most difficult issue? Making sure that every single stakeholder has a say in the process, and then moving forward with that in mind.
What do you believe the challenges and opportunities facing our community, and how are they likely to change in the future?
The challenges and opportunities. The challenges, I think, are making sustainable government, sustainable economic growth. And a sustainable plan. Once you have that developed, you need to move forward with that. And that was part of the three areas that I said. I want a revenue generation committee. I want a master plan implementation committee. I want also the appropriations committee. All these committees I want as part of a long-range view. And that is built on sustainability. You don't want to just do something that's going to have some type of negative consequence going forward. Everything has a consequence. You don't want a negative externality. Everything's going to have an externality. You don't want a negative one. That being the case, those are also the opportunities. You know, you flip them on their head, and those are the opportunities. But without the planning, they're not opportunities, they're challenges and problems. So if you have the planning, they become opportunities. So I would make those challenges into opportunities by making sure that we had a plan. And to reiterate, East Longmeadow's plan is not going to be the same as Dayton's plan or Swansea's plan. It's East Longmeadow's plan. And the way that you want the look and feel of your town needs to be addressed. Otherwise, it's going to be hodgepodge, and you're not going to be able to have any say in how you have development, and it won't be sustainable.
You've used the term like 3 times now, sustainable economic growth.
Thank you, sir.
What does sustainable economic growth look like to you?
Every town has a different definition of that. Some towns it's agricultural, and some towns it's industrial, and some towns it's mixed use, and some towns it's heavy industry, and sometimes it's business high rises. Any one of them can sustain a tax base, but you're going to have a different flavor of what your town is. So that's why you have to have a very defined master plan, and it needs to be reviewed every 5 years to make sure you're staying on track. Some towns want mixed use with mixed developments, 40B and other developments that are mixed use. That's all well and good. You can plan for that. If you don't plan for it, it just happens, and then you're reacting to it. Likewise, if you don't plan for the setbacks of a strip mall, they happen the way that they happen. You can develop the way you want to develop.
So when you use the word sustainable, you're referring more to the tax base than you are to the growth?
Both. They're both synonymous and synchronous. They both are symbiotic. You need to have a plan that allows for growth, that is in your type of growth, and you can sustain that type. Because if you don't plan for your type of growth, you end up with other types of growth. You may end up with sprawl. People misconstrue the idea that building a house somehow is very beneficial economically for the town. In actuality, it's a net loss. You build a house and you have to educate the students, you have to put out fires, you have to respond to ambulance calls. You don't collect all of the revenue and taxes as you do in services. It's a negative. But that's not to say that you don't want houses. If you want houses, you need to plan for the type of development that will sustain it. You have to have something to offset that, whether it's an apartment complex in one side of town, or if it's a strip mall or some other type of industry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
No problem. What skill set do you offer, and what do you feel separates you from other qualified candidates?
I have a master's in public administration, which gives me a skill set to know how public administration works. I have a bachelor's in political science, which gives me the skill set to know how the political entity works. I have a Juris Doctorate, which gives me the knowledge to know how the law works. I have 20 years of using my knowledge as an attorney in the municipal setting with land use, with employment contracts and collective bargaining, and 41-111F hearings, and workers' compensation hearings, municipal law in front of the AG and IG, and I have 10 years of running a town. I did everything from soup to nuts. I was the town administrator. I ran the town. So if you take those and put them all into one, I have the way of looking at it from a legal perspective, from a political perspective, from an administrative perspective, and a legal perspective and practical perspective, because, you know, I worked as an attorney as well. That's how I was able to see how we can get all these land swaps and things and get a tot lot, a football field, cell towers, all these things that bring revenue in and save the town money without having tax dollars spent. It's just a whole different perspective of looking at things and a different skill set to utilize.
Okay, Liz.
Yes.
And what method do you use to deal with difficult residents? What method would you use to deal with difficult residents?
No resident is inherently difficult. I've had my share of people that make your life difficult, but I wouldn't say the resident, him or herself is difficult. You have to respect them, you have to validate them, you have to hear their issues, address their issues. At some point in time, if it becomes absurd, you handle it in that regard. I had one resident who literally, not figuratively, literally wanted every single dog license ever. The town was incorporated in 1643. She wanted every single dog license ever. And I wrote her a letter back and said, the least qualified person to do that job is me, and my hourly rate is $120 an hour. And if you want to pay me $120 an hour, I will look up every single dog license ever. And if we have an issue with that, we'll take that to the Attorney General. And I went to the Attorney General, and the Attorney General personally called me, not the Attorney General, but her staff, and laughed and said, yeah, I think you're all set. So at some point in time, there's absurdities, but 99.9% of the time, if you validate and hear the complaint, you can deal with it in a reasonable, rational manner. Of course, you get that 1% that, you know, they want every single dog license to 1643.
Good point. Not a follow-up to that, I just have one additional question whenever it's appropriate.
Sure.
I'm going to refer to your cover letter.
Yes, sir?
In there, you stated that you represented the town when you were in Rehoboth at 41 111F and MCAD hearings.
Yes, sir.
For a town the size of Rehoboth, in a 10-year period, that seems high. My question is, and I'm just going to come out with it because I don't know how to phrase it in a kinder way, but is that indicative of your management style?
I didn't bring those upon us. They were brought to us. The 41 111F hearing was an injured on duty police officer who had been off the rolls for a year and a half.
Back up.
Yes, sir?
Okay, I misunderstood.
Okay.
Forget it. It was chapter 41,
Okay.
111F.
Yes.
I thought you were referring to 41 111F hearings.
No, chapter 41 111F.
And I was gonna say, that's a lot of hearings in a 10-year period.
No,
Okay.
it was one injured officer who had been off the rolls for a year and a half, and we had to go in front of the tribunal to see if we could get that officer back on the rolls, and I represented the town there.
Your reference was the 41 was in reference to the chapter. I
Yes.
thought it was in reference to a number. It was an unfair
Okay.
question for me to ask then, in that, given
Okay,
that.
thank you.
So thank you for your clarifying that for me.
Yes.
So, you know, that concludes our portion.
Thank
Is there any questions that you had for us before we?
Well, I have a question in regards to where we go from here. But in the event that I am very fortunate to be given the opportunity, my biggest question is I really, really want to know what it is that this council sees as priorities 1 through 10, because I'd like to jump on those. That's not a conversation for here, but that's, you know, right there in the back of my mind. I really want to get on that. But the question that I have for here is, how do we proceed? What's the next step?
Kevin, do you wanna take
Well,
that?
we're gonna have a discussion, we obviously have another candidate to interview.
Yes,
So
sir.
we're gonna conduct those interviews tonight, hopefully at some point we'll be able to discuss the candidates tonight, and I mean, it might be optimistic, but I'd like to have some consensus maybe tonight if we could do that. I don't know that that's gonna happen. If not, it will be within the next few days. I would think we could come to some kind of agreement. It's not like we have 45 people to interview. And then we would look at, I'm thinking, offer a position at some point within the next week, pending a background investigation. Obviously, passing a background investigation, we've looked at having Joe talk to the Collins Center to have them conduct a full background investigation on our behalf. So we would do that, and then sit down and try and hammer out more specific details of the contract, I would say.
Certainly.
But
What's the time frame of, it's my understanding that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that August 1st seems to be
Right around the corner.
a day that you're shooting for. Is that still a realistic goal?
I think it's realistic, based on, and I think that we can get a lot of what we're looking to get done in the next day or two anyway. I'm hoping that with the council we can work towards it actually tonight,
Okay.
getting that piece done, at least, and then hammer out those details so we are within that August 1st deadline.
And then, just to add one piece to it, the Collins Center uses an outside screening selection service.
Yes.
And so those can take 5 to 10 business days.
Yeah.
So employment will be, contingent upon, passing that.
Certainly.
We don't see the raw data.
Right.
We see whatever they run and screen for, we get an affirmative or negative, and then we'd be able to enter there. So we're somewhat at the, discretion of an outside agency as well.
Right.
So we'd have to factor that in, so that does make it a little more different. But very shortly thereafter would seem to make sense and what's on everyone's mind.
I don't know where the other candidates fall in that, but the Collins Center has done that already on me. So they may have to update it, going forward, but they've done a full background screen, and it's
Okay, it's good to know.
I can assure you it's
Yeah.
done,
Yep.
and it's good.
Well, I just want to say thank you very much,
No, thank you very much.
and it was a pleasure talking to you.
Well, it was very nice meeting you all, and I certainly hope that we can see each other in the future.
Yeah.
Call the meeting back to order. Just quickly, we do have one other person taping this section. Juliana, if you could just say for the record there.
My name is Juliana Mazza with 22 News.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now we have our second candidate, Denise Menard. Joe?
Yeah, thank you for coming, Denise. Again, what we're looking here is, we asked you to prepare, one question, and then after you kind of walk us through that, what that first 30 days would look like. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, and then tell us a little bit about what your plan is, and then we'll ask you a series of other questions, and there may be some sub questions in between.
Certainly.
And then we'll save a few minutes of the time for you to ask us any questions that you need to have answered as well.
Okay.
So Kevin will facilitate, and we'll kind of take it from there. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Denise, thanks for being here. Just want to kind of run down. We have a series of 9 questions. I'm going to ask the question. Feedback can come from the counselors if they have follow-up questions. So I'll kind of go around the table after the question is done, or maybe after you're finishing with the portion of answering. So that way they have an opportunity to ask anything for clarification or whatever. And I know that we had given you that one question to take home. And so the first question, if selected, what would be your plan for the first 30 days?
So I'm a preparer, and I did prepare. And actually, after I submitted my original letters and resume, I went to your clerk of the council and asked him for an annual report and all of that stuff. And you'll see it sort of ties into, I didn't realize at the time that's my style anyway. But I have a letter addressed to you all. It says, Councilman Ford asked that I prepare to discuss what my plans would be for the first 30 days on the job if I'm chosen as the interim town manager. My approach to any new position is to read and to listen. The interim town manager needs to be sensitive that the town's employees have been through a time of uncertainty that will continue until the permanent town manager is on board. Keeping that in mind, along with provisions in your recently adopted charter, the interim will need to address immediate needs for keeping the business of the town moving forward, getting to know the council, the town employees, and the community in general. That will require a clear understanding of the town council's priorities and getting familiar with the budget and the governing documents that you have. Pending legal matters, including litigation, personnel, and contracts that may be expiring through the end of the year. The town's properties, because I saw in the charter that this person is responsible for some of that kind of, having to do with the town's properties. So I've been introduced to the town hall, and I've been introduced to the library because we got here a little early, and I've checked out this building, so I'm on a roll. Economic development that needs anything from the manager or the town staff, capital projects for this fiscal year, and vacancies that need to be filled. It will certainly be a busy 30 days. The first 30 days will be critical to setting the tone for the time the interim town manager is in place. This will require meeting lots of new people, learning their priorities, their needs and expectations, while getting to know what the staff is used to handling. The interim also needs to provide a comfortable business climate for employees, residents, and business people. My management style is one that's inclusive, meaning I usually have good ideas on how to get things done, but will always work with the managers and/or council on coming to the best course of action. Having worked with a board of selectmen of 5 that met every 2 weeks, I provided them with background on an issue, along with usually my recommendation on how to move forward on it. I held monthly senior staff meetings so that all managers could share what they had going on throughout the town, and I met with managers individually, as there were often matters that were either personnel or just not somebody else's business, projects that were going on, that kind of thing. I let the managers manage, but I was always available if they needed, and asked that they keep me informed of what was going on. I expect those kinds of conversations would start immediately so that you can start implementing your priorities with the town's day-to-day business being kept moving on. I've already picked up all the information I told you about. So in a sense, I've already begun some of the reading. East Long Meadow looks like a great town. I would be honored to keep it headed in the right direction. Thank you, and I welcome any questions.
The only thing, well, I guess maybe the only questions later, I was going to say, one of the things you can do is tell us about yourself and your, sort of your background, because I know about it, and I know we have the resumes for the townspeople that are listening now.
Okay. I was the first selectman for the town of East Windsor for 8 years. And in fact, the reporter was asking me why I was interested in this. I loved the day-to-day business. I didn't like the politics as much. That's your bailiwick now. But I accomplished a lot in those 8 years and built a tremendously efficient and great team that was really, we were like a family. And we worked hard. I have been called a workaholic. I don't expect that of the staff, but it sometimes kind of rubs off a little, you know. We got a lot of things done. Bonding, our bond rating went up because we revamped the way we did some of our financial things. We were able to address more capital projects by doing that. Personnel, we had no personnel rules. We didn't even have a structure on how to interview people. If you were a cousin of so-and-so, you could learn how to use the big mower. Well, it turns out this so-and-so was allergic to grass. So that wasn't such a good fit. And I asked, well, how did he get the job? Well, he's related to so-and-so. So we immediately, I began a structure of how to do interviews, do testing, which they didn't even have an idea what they should be doing for testing. When I said, well, we need to give so-and-so a typing test if they're going to be a secretary, they had no idea. I said, take a page from a magazine. I don't care, as long as we know they know how to type. And sure enough, one lady, I said, you need to go check on her. It's been 45 minutes. And it was a paragraph. So, you know, we brought a lot of good common sense organization to the organization. And that comes from my background as a paralegal. I was a paralegal for 15 years. Well, in your heart, I'm still a paralegal. And I have a degree in business as well. So it really is a good combination. I have a sensitivity to legal matters and common sense approach to a lot of things. Don't mind tackling hard decisions if we have to. And that's one of the reasons I gave the town attorney as one of my references, because we did have some very difficult decisions that we had to make. In 8 years, there's always stuff. So I come from East Windsor. I grew up in Hartford. I have 2 children. I was married 10 years ago to a gentleman from Chicopee, Dave Menard, no relation to Sarah. But I think it's a great name. And he has 2 sons, one in West Springfield and one outside of Boston. So we have some grandchildren. I don't know what else you would want to know.
That's good.
No, good.
What is your leadership philosophy?
Surround yourself with smart people, and they will prove you right every time. I can give an example in that we had a town planner who's a great and competent lady, and we had I don't know if you have the same term here, but it's a plan of conservation and development. So it's the 10-year plan for the town, how you're going to develop the town. And the Board of Finance would not fund a consultant to help her do the plan. So she and I sat down and I said, Lori, you can do this. I know you can. She said, I don't think I can. You can, and at the end of it, you will be so proud. And look at how great it'll look on your resume. Well, that was maybe 5 years ago, and 2 weeks ago, she provided the Board of Selectmen a beautiful, comprehensive POCD, Plan of Conservation and Development. And the glowing on her face was just amazing. I had helped mentor her, and it worked for her, and it worked for all of us. So it was great. And I've done that a lot. So mentoring, teaching, encompassing everybody into the management.
How will you develop a relationship with department heads, employees, the council, and unions? And can you give us an example, well, other than the one you just gave, but how you built relationships in the past?
Well, I can expand a teeny bit. The first day that I became first selectman, I knew that it was, again, an unsettling thing. It's like, oh, who is this lady? We've heard those things about her, you know, what's she gonna be like? Everybody knew that I'd been on a lot of boards and commissions, so I had a good grasp of a lot of pieces of the town government already. But in doing that, you make decisions that are not always, you know, the most popular decision, but if it's the right thing to do, it's the right thing to do. So the first day, just to allay everybody's fears, I sort of gathered maybe 3 or 4 departments at once, and we went and sat in the big room, in a big meeting room, and I told them about myself. I told them that I'm a Rotarian, that I live by the 4-way test. Anybody that's a Rotarian would know what that is. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And is it beneficial to all concerned? And that's in my heart. And they sort of started, sitting back a little. And then I told them about my grandchildren and where I went to school. And then I said, what questions do you have? And they had every kind of question. How long I'd been in town, where I went to high school. I'm an open book. So I think that's probably part of my style as well.
Quick question.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
So I had the opportunity to talk to your chief of police. Tell me why he considers you the best boss he's ever had.
Wow. That's a tough one from a police chief, huh? I guess we both inherited pretty broken organizations. And the police department, when he came on board, which was 2 years prior to me, had some big challenges. I came on board, and maybe like the second week I was there, he came and told me that we had a federal lawsuit with CHRO, Human Rights, with one of our officers, and we'd already. The huge amount of legal money that had been thrown at it already was just unbelievable. And by the way, we need to go to court next week, and I'm thinking, wow, okay, welcome to the real world, I guess. We grew to have a relationship where he has the most awesome police department at this point, and we were partners in getting my organization, the rest of the town employees, into that same kind of organization. So I am inclusive. When I started, he told me that there had never been a senior staff meeting before, that everybody was all siloed. So maybe that's why, I don't know, I'm going to have to ask him that.
What information do you think the town council needs to have concerning day-to-day operations and then ongoing projects?
I'll tell you what I used to tell my staff. Don't surprise me. And don't let me get yelled at in the grocery store because of something that you all are doing that I have no idea what's going on. So certainly you need to be informed. I used to do, for the Board of Selectmen, a weekly report, a bi-weekly report every other week, so that they would know all of the high level. They didn't really need to know, that we were changing the fixtures in the bathroom, but you maybe needed to know that we were going to remodel all the bathrooms, things that the taxpayers might be yelling at you about. Certainly you need to know, but also the day-to-day business that you all at the end of the day are going to be the ones that will be held responsible for it. The town manager is, in my eyes, is your worker bee, if there's a way to put it, to keep everything going and keep it as low-key as possible, but open. The more people know, the less they make up, and the less that you get hit over the head with later.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mike.
I had a brief conversation with Kimberly, who spoke very highly of you.
Thank you.
She's still the CFO over in town.
She is, and she's another success story. East Windsor's a small community, and our budget is, I think, about half of yours. It's 36 million. Yours is 60-something?
About 56.
56. So we never were able to hire, like, really developed personnel. That ended up being kind of my job. So instead of getting, like, the tax collector, I could hire the assistant because it was still a raise to our tax collector's position, but not a raise to a lot of the competing towns. So she was the assistant tax collector for another town, and she came on board as our tax collector. Maybe and she's such a smart lady and so competent. We then had an opening for our treasurer, and I went to her and said, Kim, have you thought about applying for the treasurer's position? She said, I really don't think I can. I don't know enough about what the treasurer does. I said, start coming to the Board of Finance meetings and see what they do. Come to the pension meetings and understand it. She is a star. She is now fully certified with, I think it's only been maybe 2-3 years at the most. She's fully certified, and she's paid it forward by making her assistant also take the classes with her and has become certified as well. So she's a good success story. Did that answer your question? I'm sorry.
It did. I mean, I had a second part to it, but you pretty much answered that. I was just going to ask you how you assisted her with her job description while you were there, because she said you were a big help.
Oh, she did.
And,
See, you
helped her-
guys did a
helped her
lot of homework.
tremendously, so. That's great.
I want to follow up on just one statement you made that you had said that the town manager is the council's worker bee, so to speak. Which is not untrue, but there's also some clear delineation between some executive functions and legislative functions, and they're
Absolutely.
split within the charter. I'm not sure how to word this, I'll just come up with it. Do you have a problem clarifying that line for the council when it's
Sure.
necessary?
I think in my statement, I probably said it the best. You all set the priorities. I am the one that pulls them off. So I am certainly not a needy person that has to come running to the council and say, oh, how do you want to handle that? It would be more the high-level decisions that would need to be made that you all need to be included in. And this is interim, you know. As the interim person, there are some limitations as to what the interim person can do. So it is more following your lead in a lot of things.
Thank you.
Explain a time that you had to promote an idea project to a group, specifically an unpopular project or idea. How do you motivate them or persuade them?
She has a lot.
Apparently something came to mind.
Apparently,
Yeah.
you must not have anything to draw from.
I actually used this example a couple weeks ago. Oh, actually, it was somebody said, "Oh, are you going to be nervous in front of all those people?" I said, "It can't surpass the trash wars when I had 150 angry people in a room, all screaming at me about the way we were going to do the trash." When I came on board, so you're better than that. You're not as scary as that. When I came on board, we needed to make some cuts in the budget. And one of the things we needed to do was look at the way we were doing our trash and recycling. Well, they didn't even have recycling. They had the little bins at that time. And all the surrounding towns, that's all they had. I instituted with our trash hauler every other week recycling in the tall bins and also the tall bins for our trash. But I had been advised by the trash hauler that mobile homes were not really, they're more like an apartment. You know, the residents there are paying rent on the land, and they shouldn't be included in the trash. Well, that saved us $15,000, I think. But overall, we were saving a huge amount of money. Well, the mobile home park people, the landlords, were very upset because the bill was going to be going to them. You know, they would have to rent the dumpsters, and that would be their responsibility, and they did not want to do it. So I was sitting in my office and getting ready for the meeting where I knew they were going to come and complain about it, and I see these Greyhound buses of people. They had the TV, you know, those movie camera things they had been ushered around town, getting all schmoozy and stuff. And then when I came into the room, it was like the pitchfork. Ah, they were screaming at me about, you can't take away our trash. It was up to the entire Board of Selectmen, and the board had decided that we were taking it away. But that night, under that pressure, they decided to give it back to them. So, that's one example.
Very big.
I have more.
Eric, no, I'm good. What do you consider to be the biggest challenge transitioning to our new form of government?
For you all? For the town manager?
For you, I think.
For the town manager,
We're figuring out what it is.
well, see, there's part of the challenge for the town manager. I guess I put myself in the employees' shoes, that they have had, and it's no secret, a few town managers in the last couple of years. And the reason I was able to introduce myself to most of you is because I've watched a few of the council meetings, and prior to that, some of the Board of Selectmen's meetings. You, by the way, I'm sorry?
No, I said, oh boy.
You, by the way, have a very open way of doing that. Having the link right on your website is awesome. The way you have your financials out there is awesome. It's far ahead of a lot of communities, I think. I guess just getting, as it was with the police department, just getting the trust of the employees that we're all in this together, and that I'm here to help and bring everybody together, but get things done.
A quick question.
Go ahead, Matt.
Connecticut, pretty much your entire career has been in Connecticut.
Yes.
Massachusetts, any type of transitional matters or extra learning and so forth that we have that, I know there's similarities, but there's clearly some differences.
There are clearly some differences, and I'm sensitive to them because our superintendent of schools comes from Massachusetts, and she's had some adjusting to do. In watching how she's adjusted to it, I think I am probably more open to suggestions and being able to, if I've read all of this stuff already on you guys, figuring out how Massachusetts differs, and I think your financial stuff especially is different. But it sounds like you have a very competent accountant. So again, surrounding yourself with smart people is how you're going to get the job done.
What do you believe to be the challenges and opportunities facing our community, and how are these likely to change in the future?
I think the immediate challenge is just changing the form of government. It's very courageous of you all to go to the council and town manager form of government. I don't know if it's the first time that you voted on that. I know that a lot of communities, including East Windsor, have tried to do that and have shot it down because it's too much of a change. So that in itself is going to be a big challenge for everybody, I think. Just figuring out how to get it all so that it's comfortable, and continue working day to day on all the things that you need to get done here.
What skill set do you offer, and what do you feel separates you from other qualified candidates?
Having the organizational skills that I bring to the table from my paralegal background. I used to do commercial real estate closings that were huge. I flew all over the country doing those kinds of closings, and at times they would send me with attorneys that were just out of school that I was sort of helping train them. Not that they didn't know what they were doing legally, but the process is what you know, they didn't know and I did. So you have to be extremely organized to do that kind of stuff, but you also need to have some really strong negotiating skills, because I was dealing with some pretty heavyweight people. So negotiating was something that I learned back when I worked at Cigna, but it was nothing in comparison to what I learned on the job as the first selectman. We made a lot of significant changes. Another scary day, actually this was one of those that our insurance broker still talks about, was when I proposed that we go from 9 insurance plans for 5 unions, and there were about 75 people. We had 9 insurance plans. So I couldn't get any kind of good rates, because I had, you know, all kinds of different deductibles, all kinds of different plans. And now I was thinking about what the right thing to do was. I wasn't thinking about the consequences of bringing that to 5 unions, including the guy sitting next to me was our detective, who was a giant guy, so mad, and he had said at one point, "I can't believe we're being railroaded by a politician, an insurance salesman, and a lawyer." I was like, oh my God. So I learned negotiating the hard way, but also standing for the right thing to do. And today, East Windsor has 1 plan, and we have much better rates. So it was the right thing to do, and taking the heat for it is something that needed to be done. So being courageous, I guess on the outside I look courageous, on the inside I'm like shaking like crazy, but it doesn't show. Don't tell that to anybody.
Too late,
This
Beth.
is being taped.
Ladies, I'm from, can watch it on the website.
So that's a skill that is learned kind of the hard way, but it sticks. So negotiating, organizing, and hard work. My mother-in-law told me today, she said, "So what are you doing today?" I said, I am right now working as a resident service coordinator for a senior housing complex. She said, "You're just a workaholic." I said, "I've come to resign myself to that fact. I think I am." So there are worse things.
Yeah, definitely could go worse. David? And what, last question, what method do you use to deal with difficult residents?
Difficult residents, listen. And actually, Kim Lord that you spoke to is, because she was a tax collector, she got a lot of the screamers, you know, and she taught me one of the things that I didn't know as well as I do now, which was let them unwind. Let them just yell. If they're going to yell, they're going to yell. And then try to, you know, see if you can answer their question or tell them you'll get back to them. I never pretend to know something I don't know. I will always say I'll get back to you if I don't know. There's nothing wrong in my eyes to say I don't have that answer. But somebody the other day was saying, "Do you remember when you were first selectman?" Because we have a different person who just is very new. You used to be able to the level of a department just about how much the balance of the budget was for that day. Not because just because it was part of my daily, you know, kind of stuff that I did. So I used to be able to answer a lot of questions, but there's always something that you don't know.
Not a follow-up to that, I do have one other kind of appropriate.
Go ahead.
Referring to your resume, you listed a fairly impressive involvement with various municipal boards and committees and boards and whatnot. Could you give us an overview of those, what ones you've been on, and for how long, some of the experiences that you've had?
Certainly. I can start with I was, I think it was your Public Works director that I was telling. I started in the bowels of East Windsor at the WPCA. I was the first woman on the board, and shortly after became the first woman chairman on that board. That was a long time ago, and I didn't know what I was talk about not knowing what you don't know. We were putting an interceptor right through the center of town that actually came down my street and sucked all the surface wells dry. And I was the chairman. So that was not a good day. So I went from WPCA to Planning and Zoning, and I was chairman of Planning and Zoning in the 1980s when all the condos and stuff were coming due. So we had meetings that lasted till forever, until I said, and no board had ever done this before, but we created bylaws that said, because the developers had figured out, if we wear them out, if it's 1 o'clock in the morning, they're just gonna say, you know what, just do it so that we can go home. So we created some order in how we did the meeting. I mean, we had order, we had an agenda and stuff, but they knew that by 10 o'clock we had to wrap it up. So it's either gonna wait another 2 weeks or you're gonna be a little more concise. I was on the Board of Finance. So that's how I learned so much about the budgeting and telling people, no, you can't have it, or can you do it over 2 years, or this is a great idea and let's get it done right now. And I was 10 years on the Board of Selectmen prior to being the first selectman. And then I got off. I thought, I don't want to do this political thing anymore. I need a break. And then I got back on the Board of Finance, and then they asked me to run for first. Actually, the first time they asked me to run for first, I had just gotten engaged, and I told them no. So they came back 2 years later and said, okay, so you're married now.
Honeymoon's over.
So I did that. I was on CCM, which is, I don't know what you have comparable to that in Massachusetts, but it's Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, which has all the CEOs from each town gather once a month to hear about the issues that are going on and to come to resolutions on how to be represented at the Capitol and that kind of stuff. And I was asked to be on their board of directors. So I did that, I think, it might be on my resume, maybe 6 years, 6 of the 8 years. KERMA is our Connecticut insurance. Most of our municipalities, I think close to like 90% of the municipalities in Connecticut all get their liability, auto, property, and workers' comp insurance from one insurer. It's owned by the municipalities. You know.
Self-insured,
Yeah. So my introduction to that was the day that our underwriter came with a report, and I didn't know about liability insurance or any of that stuff, or workers' comp. Now remember our conversation about the CHRO liability. They came with a sheet of paper and they said, so your rates are going to be going up like 25% this year. And I thought, I just took office, how could that be? Well, you've got this exposure and you've got this exposure, and the things that I learned that night that day that were outstanding legal matters that they were helping us cover were just hair-raising. East Windsor was the bad example of what you don't want to do. Within 2 years, I was on their board of directors and on their underwriting team and their operations and management team. So I helped. I was one of. They asked quite a few people. I think there was maybe 6 or 7 of us in different municipalities, and maybe 5 years after we were one of the worst, we were one of those that got an award for being one of the best, because we put in place a lot of training. A lot of training on how to treat personnel. We put personnel policies in effect, how to avoid hurting your back, they didn't do any of that kind of training. So, that's Karma, that was my other board of directors. I think that's, and then I am one of those that, you know, raises her hand. We need a president for the Rotary Club. Would you be president? Everybody looks down, and so I've been the officers in Rotary. I think that's about it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So I think that includes, you know, our portion. Unless anyone has any additional questions? No? Was there any questions for us?
The reporter asked, and I would assume that you want to get this done pretty quickly, yes?
Yes. That's the plan. We'd like to have that happen.
That's really, I guess anything else that would need to be discussed would be something that we'd discuss if you're going forward with me as a candidate.
You want to kind of give her an overview of the next step?
Yeah, and so our next step here is we're actually going to deliberate, I think, on, hopefully, shortly, on, over the two candidates, finish up some regular business. Hopefully within the next day or two, I don't know that we'll be able to come to a consensus tonight, but I'm thinking within the next few days, we should be able to actually figure out where we're headed. And then there is, the Collins Center is a private consulting group through UMass Boston who will do background check.
I watched the video.
There you go. You know who the Collins Center is. I don't need to explain it to you. So anyways, we have asked them to do background checks on the candidates for
Certainly.
this position, just they're a little more extensive than we could do on our own, and of course, and I only found this out today, those take, Joe, 5 to 10 days.
It could take up to 5 to 10 days. Sometimes come back quicker. So.
But you'd be making an offer contingent on that?
Yes. Yeah.
That's what I used to do.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, again, hopefully we'll be able to have a good discussion about it tonight and have a pretty good idea of the direction that we're gonna have.
Okay, so you would probably know within a few days, and you'd expect the person to start Monday?
Yesterday.
Yeah.
Thursday.
With due respect to your current employment, we understand and would, like to have somebody on as soon as possible, but we understand that you're, currently in a position and if I understand correctly, it is part-time, so.
It's 3 days a week.
Right, so if you're able to start sooner and we can have a short term of overlap, if you're willing to do that as a professed workaholic, then,
Sure, why
we-
do
maybe
one
that's-
job when you can do
yeah,
two?
Right. And then phase out of that with, reasonable, notice to them in fairness to your current employment.
Well, I hope actually that I'm not gonna be in trouble because it's gonna be on 22 News tonight,
But
so
you know
I
you're
need to go
okay.
tell my boss tomorrow morning.
You may be available sooner.
No, I'm sure, I mean, this is a senior resident complex that, it's a very rewarding job, and I can continue to do that for the 3 days a week, but could certainly give you some time if it might be a great way to transition, having, just getting your feet wet, I don't know.
Very good.
Thank you so much for
Thank
coming.
you.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions? No?
Not me, do you all have any other?
No.
I'm available if you have any questions, don't hesitate to call me.
We appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Denise, if you want to actually come up, well, thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice of you.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
I don't think I can twist that far.
Gee, you get a second? I just want to ask you a quick question.
We'll do, you know, the
I do. She used to be the
Just wanted to
superintendent
double
in
check just to
Rockwell,
make sure.
and then went to East Windsor 5 years
Yes.
ago.
So, Mr. President, I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but I know we're working on an agenda here, but I think I'd prefer to have that discussion regarding the two candidates while it's all still fresh in our mind.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it depends what everybody wants here,
No, I'd love
but
that.
I would like to do it now.
Yep.
Just for everybody's knowledge, the discussion about it, because it's not specific to any contract or whatever, the selection piece is actually gonna be open session. So we could have that conversation now. I mean, I'm looking forward to actually discussing it. I would rather do it,
Sooner rather than-
yeah, sooner rather than later.
Sure.
There's plenty of people waiting to hear the discussion, so.
I don't mind starting off then. To me, the decision is rather clear. One candidate it appears very well understood it's an interim position, interviewed for an interim position. And the other candidate, I felt like at any rate, was interviewing for a permanent position, and outlined a 30-day plan that's more reflective of a permanent position. I think one candidate was very sensitive, or appeared to be very sensitive to what the town's gone through, both the employees and the residents. The other, I don't think ever mentioned it. I don't think it really was part of the conversation. Both are very well qualified. Both have a tremendous amount of experience in municipal government. But I'll just come out and say it. I think, given those two interviews, I think right now I'm favoring Mrs. Menard.
I'll be honest with you, I'll just go on to your, one of the most important things I think for us as representatives of the voting public is her sensitivity to not only the citizens of the town, what they've gone through, the sensitivity to the change that we're currently going through, knowing that, we're all trying to figure it out and head in one direction. That sensitivity to employees, and sort of, we have a lot of employees that are, not really sure what direction they're going, are their position's gonna be here tomorrow, are they not gonna be here tomorrow? Just mannerism and personality, I think, is a fit for here is important, even though it's interim, but the fit, I think, is just as important as qualifications. And I have to say that, I have to go with Denise on that, because I just think fit-wise, it's what we need. Somebody that can manage, organize, but be sensitive to employees, citizens. I mean, that's just kind of like the whole thing we're looking to have.
And there is very much they're two very different candidates, and there is an X's and O's component to what we do here, and how they're going to execute, on certain aspects of the daily functions of the job are important. But as a leader, you delegate most of those responsibilities, and you do surround yourself and build a consensus, build a team environment, and work towards a common goal. One of the things that impressed me when I first spoke with her is that I was asking her questions about her successes, and she was giving me examples of other people's successes and she reiterated some of those tonight. It's a unique leader that does not take credit for other people's successes. I was very impressed with that. As far as references, and both of them came back with really good references. They really did. But I found that Denise's references went above and beyond. It took me almost a full day. And some people I couldn't get off the phone. And they were so regretful of, and if you're not aware, she was in an appointed position. She's in a political position. So, they run as, independent, Democrat, Republican. And her opponent ran a different type of race than she chose to. And I think one of her big regrets in how she dealt with her 8 years was that she wasn't a self-promoter. She doesn't know how to be a self-promoter. So she had successes, but couldn't express them to people, and chose not to.
Right.
They chose not to. And that was reiterated by a number of her references, that realized how good of a boss she was and are now dealing with the repercussions of a not so good boss. And I think the chief said it best, like, you know, he's offered to speak to our chief and you know, tell him, you know, from professional, you know, point of view, what to expect, the type of things that she was able to help him improve on. And treating him like a peer, but yet he always knew that she was the boss. Again, that's a
That's a
unique
big-
attribute, you know?
That's a
And
unique
he
attribute.
did say, and quote, you can quote me on this, you know, that was the best boss I ever had, and our loss is your gain. So, you know, again, I would also be leaning towards Denise.
I would too. I think clearly there are two different type of candidates, but just the chemistry that Denise exuded.
Which he brings with him.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
seems to me to be, excuse me, a good fit for the circumstances that our town is in right now. I do have one question. She clearly made it understood that she knew this to be an interim position. Does she have the aspiration to go forward as a permanent candidate?
The original conversation, yes.
Yes.
And
Who
both
knows, we could
candidates.
scare her away and, you know, she comes in and all of a sudden it's like, I'm out of here, you know.
But both candidates
Nowhere
do,
to.
and we, you know, should state for the record that both candidates understand that in prior conversations, that this is an interim position, that there is a full vetting process through the Collins Center for anybody who's wishing to, you know, apply for the permanent position. So either one of them, David is still, you know, if we so choose, David would still be eligible to apply for the permanent position and still be a serious, you know, consideration given his background and his expertise. You know,
If he were vetted by,
if you were better
right, by Collins.
Yeah, and they're all gonna, everybody is gonna go through that process.
Right.
Anybody that applies will go through that vetting process with them. There's just nothing that precludes either one of them from seeking it, and both actually had indicated that.
That they might.
They
They
might.
would.
Yeah, that their intention was to.
I have something as well. I advocate toward Denise as well. Right from my notes on the top of my list here is that she understood the job description, which is an interim town manager. And she made that very clear. I was impressed with that. She speaks from her heart. I find her very approachable. I find her humble and qualified. She displays leadership qualities versus an administrative position. And an interim town manager is a leadership position, and it's Connecticut's loss and our gain. So I'm in support of Denise.
I was just checking on the charter about the education background for the permanent position. as
Yeah,
far
I don't
as,
think she,
Business or
Yeah, I'm just
municipal
trying to-
government?
While you're
Okay.
checking, I'll throw in my 2 cents worth,
Go right
which
ahead.
is exactly the same thing as everyone else said, in that, I did find it interesting, I mean, the qualities of, you know, the qualities of the fact that she doesn't promote herself, but everyone you talk to, as far as giving her a reference, falls over themselves to talk about how good she is. I mean, that's a good quality, and I think her manner, I think, is gonna be instrumental when she's meeting with department heads in this new situation and getting through this interim period. I think the fact that she's got that, I don't wanna say folksy, cause that's too, you know, that's too whatever, but you know what I mean? She's a down to earth person, not that David wasn't, but she seems to have that quality where she's gonna be able to help the department heads and the employees to ease into this new form of government and what's gonna have to be done.
She struck me as a motivator and somebody like, I think Joe had hit the nail on the head. She's a builder. She said she likes to surround herself with smart people, but I think she likes to build those smart people, which is
Well,
building
that's
a-
clear from
building
the
a town for
success story she
success.
spoke
Yeah,
of.
absolutely, yeah.
Which she loves to tell.
what she likes to tell, and that is a very unique
Yeah.
trait.
And I think actually one of her references,
It's very-
I don't have it right in front of me, one of her references said that she is not divisive, she's a consensus builder. And that was one of her biggest traits, is that her ability to get people, maybe to diffuse people, to get them to look at the greater good, was one of her greatest assets, so, yeah.
I might go on a limb and say you might want to take a vote.
Len,
We
do you
haven't
have a
heard from
comment
Don.
or a question about?
Yeah, no, I mean, my thinking is, as far as if I were gonna pick one for the permanent, I would probably pick David for permanent at this point of the two. But for interim, I would have to agree with all you guys in this, because I liked what he was bringing to the table as far as putting a plan together and actually taking the initiative of looking at the best practices for the town and so forth. And also the education background, nothing to do with him being an attorney, it has to do with more of the business, I mean, in terms of the governmental background. His education, I think, was one of the requirements that we were looking for in this. I like the fact that for him, that he has a good, strong background in Massachusetts, being familiar, because being able to come up with this series of ideas of raising money and having the own initiative was extremely beneficial, because one of the features that I said during the campaign is I would like to have a candidate that would find strategies and ways to help justify his or her salary, as you know, because we are going to be spending the money. I mean, to me, the couple choices that I have is, yeah, I agree with all you guys. I think Denise, if we're going to pick between the two, would be a good choice. The other one that I still have to leave in the back of my mind was the fact of continuing to go from acting to permanent, as to say is if our current acting is willing to stay on through that position, to me, that would be the 1A vote. But if that's not what we're discussing is between the two for the interim position, I would have to agree with Denise, with all you, because I think our town at the end of the day has gone through a lot of changes, a lot of bosses, a lot of faces of East Long Meadow as far as going to the town hall. And adding one more face is, you know, as far as department heads and understanding who, you know, who are we dealing with, is whether that is beneficial. I guess so we'll have to let history decide that. So, so again, if we choose between David and Denise for the interim, I would agree with you for Denise. I think David, I would like to encourage him and others to apply for the permanent. And, but I still want to play in our minds the, you know, consider is if Bob wants to stay on, does that best serve the interest of the town of East Long Meadow as a whole?
And I would like.
I'm sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I think you got me to the bus though.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I would like to be on the record saying that I've not ever been a fan of an interim candidate being able to go forward into a permanent selection process. To me, the detractions outweigh the advantages. The perception that an interim could have the inside track because they're already test driving, if you will, the position can be disenchanting to other potential candidates who may put themselves forward or not in the permanent process. And in the course of our interviews with the Collins Center, mine, because I was away, was clearly by phone, but I raised that question with the liaison from the Collins Center, and I don't think they make any bones about saying that having an interim also have the ability to be a candidate for the permanent process can hinder their ability to attract the brightest, the biggest, and the best.
Right.
Because in that headhunter process, if you will, the folks that are looking for new positions are imminently aware of the scenario that they're seeking. So if I were going to be a serious candidate and take myself through the Collins Center to be eligible for a permanent position here, I would already have, I'd be aware that there's an interim who also might be a candidate. And that might, depending on the circumstance, I feel like we may be shackling ourselves.
Well, I just
a
want to
little.
say something to that, and there's a few schools of thought on that. I think, and I've talked to other people about this issue, is that we have a great opportunity to observe that position in an interim capacity works either for or against the candidate. It could go one way or the other.
Correct.
And quite frankly, on the record, I would say that if you're worried that we've already said it's open and competitive, this type of interview process is certainly more open and transparent than any other interview process for any of those high-level positions have been, right? But if
Oh, I'm not challenging that at all.
I know, but I just want to, let me just finish quickly, is that if you think that you're not going to put in because, to the Collins Center, because there's an interim and you think the votes in or whatever, they automatically got it, you're not our candidate. Because if you don't have it to stand up and say,
I'll
yeah,
take my chances.
I wasn't going to take a shot on an interim job, right? If I'm a permanent town manager, I'm not going to take a shot on an interim job hoping that it develops into a full-time position. That I see. But if you're not the person that wants to stand up and say, that's the job I want, I'm going to apply anyway and see how it goes, then you're you're that person we're looking for. But if you can't do that, I mean, I know they say they restrict the applicant pool. They're getting paid to be a consultant. They're going to do with what we have, right? I mean,
there's no doubt about that.
And there's also another component to that as well, that there is no provision within the charter precluding them from applying for the correct
Understood.
position.
Yeah.
In addition to that, you know, we if we had 3 or 4 or 5 part-time retired, you know, applicants that wanted to be interim manager, then this might be a different discussion. We might shelf both of them so that we have that ability to you know, not put that, but we're in a situation where we have 2 highly qualified candidates that we could choose to pass on, repost, extend Bob another 30 days, and then we're done. We can only extend him twice, correct?
Right.
So now we're put to the screws. What happens if we don't get a interim by September 1st? So we cannot change Bob's title to interim because that's not allowed. And it's also not fair because he's a coworker of other department heads, and he eventually is going back to being a coworker of other department heads. So we're kind of, you know, we are not hiding behind the charter, but it was written for a purpose and a reason. I think it's well written. I don't have a problem with the way it's written.
No, I concur. I think the fact that we did not have retired town managers, you know, flocking here to come in, is it speaks to the fact that it's, you know, that we're actually doing, you know, basically trying to pre-permanent interviews. And it may sour the milk, because let's say you have a really good job and you're going, geez, do I really want to expose myself to where I'm at? But I would love this opportunity.
if you love it, you're coming. If you don't love it, you stay where you are.
Well, I had this
If
conversation
you love
with.
that
I
town
had
and you
th-
think that job's for you, you apply, regardless, Don, of whether you have a great job or not. You're not applying.
You and I would do that.
Right, you're not
okay?
applying, then don't come. You're not our guy.
But what I'm saying is talking to our liaison and having that bonus time to talk to him. He did say, from his experience, it does, and in my words, sour the milk. If somebody comes in and goes, it's like in real estate. You're buying a house, and someone says, well, just in case the contingency doesn't work, let's have it subject to backup offers. All right? You know how many backup offers I've seen in 32 years? Hardly any. Because people are going, no, these people want the house. I don't want to put an offer in there because these people, this is the insider. Look how happy this interim person is with the management and all this kind of stuff. I'm just saying the intent was, the vision was acting, retiree, interim, and then permanent. I think we've kind of like, by default, nature pours a vacuum. We've gotten some candidates that are probably doing like a jump start of the permanent position right now. And it could have a consequence. Like I said, we only have, again, what you're saying, for 30 days. Of the 2, I would say the better of the interim persons would be Denise, in my opinion.
So let's
I'd like to-
entertain a motion to,
I'd like to add one piece to this.
I think we need to finish this
Well, yeah.
discussion on it. I don't disagree with anything you said, Kathy. I had the same reservations. I will say this, however, in 35 years in municipal government, there's always an inside candidate. There's always an internal candidate. If you're talking about police chief, fire chief, or town managers.
Understood, I was one.
And, yeah, okay, and same thing in the school, right. So there's always an internal candidate. I don't think it deters the serious candidates from applying. I really don't.
Okay.
I would differ in opinion on that, just because that's the way things are done in the municipal world. One makes an assumption if there's an advertisement, they're not just gonna go automatically with an internal candidate.
Plus, if you're spending $14,000 to get an independent group
To do it.
vet candidates, I don't think we're gonna,
Yeah.
turn around and just hire the same person for no reason.
Denise came in here and interviewed for an intern position. If she came in and re-interviewed for the full-time manager position, you might find her interview totally different. So,
That's entirely true.
right?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you.
So I think she did a great job. She stayed on point with the
Yeah.
interview for the position that's being offered today.
I would also, I'm sorry, go ahead. I just want to follow up on what Don said, although I'm very appreciative to Bob for stepping up on such short notice and doing a fantastic job. I also think it's unfair to ask him, or unfair to ask the town that he does the two jobs at once, because one's going to suffer, or they're both going to suffer. There's no way for the right, or Bob's going to suffer for the long term. I don't see that it's a good thing for that to be kept up. So I do think, though I appreciate the thought and I do appreciate the offer, I think it's best for the community that we set a plan in motion. I think it's best that we follow our plan. And if we have viable candidates, I was reserving comment until we interviewed to see what we had, and I think we have viable candidates.
I don't disagree with you.
I'll call a vote.
So I would then make a motion that we offer the position to Denise Menard, and that the council authorize the council president and Joe to enter into contract negotiations or specifics in terms of benefits and compensation, to come back for final approval for the council once that's settled.
You need authorization for the background check, or is that already part and parcel?
Authorization would be, come from a disclosure agreement that the Collins Center has in place, so we would piggyback off theirs. And the fee is somewhere between $300 and $400.
So we have to authorize that?
One-time fee, we have to
Okay.
authorize that as well.
Okay, but that's an appropriation motion, so I think it would be
Okay, well,
best
if
in
it
a
was
separate
part of the
motion.
separate motion,
Yeah,
okay.
this is to offer the employment and authorize those two to negotiate
All right.
a deal, bring it back for final approval.
So
Second.
Moving and seconded, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
Opposed?
do have a question
We need
about,
to do the
We
appropriation
have to do
motion.
the appropriation for
Yeah.
the,
Yeah.
okay, we'll do that first then, and I have a follow-up question.
Okay, how much?
300,
It could be up to $400.
up to 400,
So-
okay.
I don't have an exact figure.
He quoted $350 that night, I
Up to-
remember. So,
When I asked him, he said.
Not to
he said,
exceed
yeah.
400?
There's gotta
Not
be an
to exceed
expense account,
500.
existing expense account in the selectmen's budget that we can utilize, right, without appropriating additional funds, Bob, yeah?
Definitely.
Yeah, okay, so I don't think we need to appropriate any
Okay, we can
additional
just
funds, there's
use
already
this-
funds
right,
existing
right.
that we can
Okay.
expend.
And just,
from.
I know there's funds too, just for everybody's knowledge, there's funds left or appropriated in that budget for town administrator that was not filled. So there is salary monies available through the selectmen's budget. At least it covers on the intern piece. We may have to at another time revisit that, but at least it's already appropriated for the intern.
Yeah,
Which brought me to my next question, do we want to deliberate on interim pay?
the reason behind my motion is I trust both of you guys to kind of do some research background and negotiate something that's reasonable, fair, and equitable to both parties.
Very good.
Plus, that would be an executive session.
And that compensation will be subject to our appropriation.
Yes, that's why I said to
That's
come
right.
back, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So, and this may be a question for our town attorney. Is the position of interim, since it's inherently temporary, is that position eligible for benefits?
That's a matter of your negotiations. She would be eligible for insurance benefits at least because she's gonna work a minimum of 20 hours per week. But the other benefits would be a matter of your negotiations.
Yeah, so there's what we'll talk about. She works 20 hours a week, so.
Very good.
Parts of that. All right, now. Sorry, Bob, we cut you off in the middle of your. Middle of.
Sure.
I think we were on boards and committee compensation, right? We had finished that.
Yeah.
So we're at review C, review license and permit issuance.
If you wouldn't mind, just a couple of questions that would.
Yeah, go ahead.
Be going forward. Does the council anticipate that they would have a candidate signed under contract and designated as the interim town manager by July 30th?
No, because of the background
because of
check.
background check.
That background's gonna take at least 5 days.
Well, and to be honest with you, to be solidified, it's gotta come back to us, so unless we arrange a special meeting, that's 2 weeks out.
Sure.
So,
I think honestly, timing wise, and by the time, we get cleared, make an offer, agree to terms, and then she gives due notice, we can probably realistically wait till the next meeting,
Right.
and then have her start that Wednesday after. So when's the next meeting, the 9th? So we're talking,
August 9th.
yeah, so shoot for August 10th, so we would probably have to extend Bob's 11 days.
are you okay with?
I'm definitely okay. It would help to have some clarity because there are, ongoing discussions that if the discussions stop on July 30th, I'm better off not even starting the discussion. So it would
Bob,
help
I
to
think part of that too
understand.
is, there's some work obviously in the works that she's gonna have to sit with you and.
Sure.
You don't just disappear off the face of the earth, I hope.
No,
Yeah.
definitely not.
And it gives her time to.
Spend this 12 hours.
It's a good transition
Yeah.
So,
opportunity too.
we went originally with a 30-day period, so would it be, I guess, appropriate to extend it for a period of 2 weeks? That'll give some transition, a few days, get some transition time. We can even revisit it if we have to. On the ninth.
Do we know how much notice she has to give where she presently is employed?
They don't.
I talked to her just briefly about that and alluded to it when she was here, is that because she is, I believe she's working 19 hours a week.
Yeah, she's 3 hours, 3 days a week.
Yeah, that if she had to, she could give us 2 hours a week.
2 days.
But 2 days, sorry, 2 days a week, but she wanted to give two weeks notice.
Okay.
So depending on when we agree to terms, and then she can communicate that to her employer.
So why don't we do this then? Why don't we extend, under the charter, we can do this, extend Bob's for an additional 30, or for additional period not to exceed another 30 days.
Yeah, that's good.
And it can end when she comes in.
With your blessing, of course.
I may find a need to take a little bit of a break somewhere in that next 30 days, but beyond that, certainly.
Break.
Yeah.
A break, wait a minute.
Really?
Saturday or Sunday, maybe somewhere in the
You're missing a
Yeah.
baseball game or something.
No, it
So
definitely works out, yeah.
I'll put that in the form.
Thank you.
It's either Saturday or Sunday.
Not both, you're right.
Not consecutive.
And not evenings either.
That's it.
So you want that in a, take it to a vote?
I think it should.
Yeah, we should have
So then I'll move that we extend Bob as acting town manager, Bob Parent is acting town manager for a period not to exceed another 30 days or until the interim takes over.
And that's effective on August 1?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Not from today.
Second.
moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
And I guess getting back to business.
Well, do you have any more questions, Bob? Because I know
No, I
you
think
have
that,
a few.
2 to 4 weeks from now, we'll probably, things will be more clear. But it was important, I think, tonight to get an understanding of what this timetable might look like. And then as we get closer to the actual transition, myself and council, myself and Ms. Menard, you know, we'll have discussions about the mechanics of how that would happen.
Okay.
You know, at some point, we should, and we don't have to tonight, Bob, but the original agreement we had with you was an additional week of vacation for 30 days. It's not fair to ask you to do another 30 days for nothing. So at some point,
Let's do it now.
I think, well, he probably hasn't had time to think about it, so,
And, yeah.
you know,
It
at some
remains-
point, I think it's fair that we discuss that.
Right, there's gotta be
Yeah.
some.
The greatest value to me is the opportunity, so that's worth more than
Thank
anything
you.
else.
Thank you.
So, moving forward. The next item I have is really a follow-up on an item we talked about at the last meeting, getting a little bit more clarity regarding the licensing, really the breadth of licensing that the town council might be covering. And to that end, the town attorney had suggested that we put together a list of at least the commonly issued licenses and permits and try to take a look at what the statutory authority for those were, and that would help to give a little bit of clarity, and that's what I put together in the table that I handed out. And I think it does help to really show that the council, as licensing authority, has authority over a number of licenses, but it's a relatively small number of licenses. And there's a number of licenses that were blurred between Board of Selectmen and Board of Health licenses in the past that are clearly the responsibility of the Board of Health. So, you know, the obvious ones we've talked about: liquor licenses, one-day liquor licenses, flammable storage license for what it's worth. Anytime somebody installs a new fuel storage tank, the initial license is actually issued by the licensing authority. The renewals are then processed through the town clerk. So there may be other ones that come up along the way, but I think, you know, this is a list of what we typically issue and where I think the responsibilities lie.
Some of those, about, I think I know Thursday, we're gonna go look at some of those ones with the Board of Health, at the Board of Health meeting to
Right.
give the director the permission under, that was one of the things we talked about. So I just wanted to.
Certainly. And I did make a distinction between licenses and permits, because I think the permits are fairly clear in terms of the ability for the health director to issue permits. Licenses are probably something you'll have to discuss further.
And if I may, through the chair, well, we've got this list, and I know, I think Councilor Anderson brought it up last time, at some point when we want to review the fees associated with these, because our fee structure is not quite in the 21st century, and not that we're gonna make $1 million off it, but to get it up to where other towns are, we shouldn't lose money on it, so if we can get a little additional income from just bumping these up to where they are comparative to other towns and cities, then, you know, that'll help the town, and that'll help, and it's basically user fees, so.
Right.
So we should do that at the same time.
Probably be said about all the towns, all the departments' fees and permits and stuff, that we should do a town-wide evaluation of those.
Yep. The next item I had no handout on, but really just to make department heads aware, to make the council aware as well, that and certainly I welcome Jim to jump in anywhere along the way, but as I understand it, Mass General laws really recognize two forms of municipal government in Massachusetts: a city form of government and a town form of government. Then there's a number of different flavors under the city form of government. By adopting the form of government that the town has adopted, we now fall into the city category under Mass General laws. And what that means, in some cases, there may be some rules that might have applied to us as a town that may be different in the town's current status. And just an example is that the Board of Health, by Mass General law, as we transition into a new Board of Health over time, will need to have, by Mass General law, a physician on the Board of Health. So as we look at possibly refilling a Board of Health position at some point in the future, obviously we'll be looking towards trying to refill that with an individual that would meet that criteria and satisfy that. And there's a few other, you know, I find a few of these things coming up on a periodic basis. There will be more, where some of the ways that we do business might be a little bit different. I'll mention another example is that the body within the town that had the authority over traffic regulations, setting of speed limits, placement of speed limit signs, things like that, has been Board of Selectmen, and that's correct under Mass General law. With our change in our form of government, that now gets shifted to the legislative body. and if either a board of aldermen or town council or city council. So that authority now shifts from the executive authority to the legislative authority through the change in government.
Changed the speed limit on Lee Street. Never mind. No, they had the police there this morning. They put on their Facebook page. Keep it the way it is.
One item, and it was not on the agenda because it just occurred yesterday, as council is aware of. I did just want to talk a little bit about the water use restrictions and the reasoning for those because it hit us all fairly quickly. We put these restrictions in place. I consulted with members of the Board of Public Works over the weekend and on Monday morning. The trend that we're seeing with the very high temperatures and very dry conditions means that our water usage has been very high and somewhat uniquely has stayed very high over an extended period of time. We're typically used to seeing 2 or 3 or 4 days where we get our peak usage, and our peak usage right now is about 4 to 5 times what it is in December, just to give you a sense of the amount of water that's being. Good thing is it's being sold, there's revenue coming into the town, but the bad news is we have to get it to the customers in town. What tends to happen typically is this time of year, all the water that the town consumes gets pumped at least once. Water comes from Springfield Water and Sewer Commission. It gets pumped into town at the Harkness pumping station during peak conditions. And then about 2/3 of the town is served by a boosted system at the Chestnut Street pumping station that lifts the water up to our water storage tanks. When we're in a peak condition, those pumping facilities are at their peak capacity. The storage tanks are being utilized. They're intended to buffer that demand. And what happens is typically is they tend to fill and drain. The trend that we're seeing over the last 10 days is they fill and drain, but they don't quite fill all the way back up, and the level gets a little bit lower and a little bit lower and a little bit lower every night. So we were seeing on Monday morning tank levels that were as low as they had been just after the Blueberry Acres fire. And the difference there was it was a major fire event. We used a lot of water very quickly, but we had the ability to replenish that water fairly quickly because we weren't during a peak condition. In this case, we were at that same level in our water storage tanks, and we were using all the water we could deliver. So we made the decision to put out a voluntary water use restriction. The good news is I believe it's being effective. Our tank levels have risen already over the last 24 hours.
Wow.
They still have a ways to go, but they're heading in the right direction. We were trending in the wrong direction. That would have put us in a not very good condition. We're now trending in a good direction. So I'm optimistic that we get through this week. We're looking at potentially some rain finally happening. Maybe this weekend some temperatures coming down. Usage trends will maybe drop off a little bit. We may be in a position where we can remove that voluntary restriction, but we felt it was very necessary to put it in place and put it in place when we were to make certain that we could turn that trend around. And we have, and thank all the residents and the businesses for doing so because it definitely has made a difference. That's all I have.
Number 6, act on the minutes, July 12th, 2016 meeting. Entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the July 12th, 2016 town council. You have them?
I just want to, let Mr. Madison did come in today, which is good. He was proactive, and there was 3 or 4 small adjustments anyway. And I don't know if I can read them right now.
Yeah, that's fine.
On page 2, under item 5B, I added compensation. I had the word "it" in there, and I added compensation. I made a motion to authorize the acting town manager to go forward with the library director's skill as long as compensation doesn't exceed the budget amounts. So it was important to put the word compensation in there. Okay. And then on page 3, item 5C, section II, the recorded all the votes of all the roll call vote of all the members. Instead of just saying it voted unanimously, I just recorded each vote of each individual council member. So that was the change there. on section 8B, part 2. Changed it just to appropriate. I put it, again, what Mr. Madison suggested, raise and appropriate $23,914 as outlined in the attached document, and I named the document with the header ones in that document. It was the line by line for each town hall employee and contract. And well, on the very last page, 8B, section 2, the debt study and recommendation committee. I put the study, it was to study the debt and attempt to pay down the debt, but it was just strictly, we formed a committee, the debt study and recommendation committee. And then the very last one, a motion was made. I put, Mr. Maley made the motion, seconded by Mr. Madison. It was the other way around. It was, Eric made the motion and Kevin seconded.
I have one more. Item 8A, it has, Mr. Anderson asked if they have an education background. So, no, what I believe I said was if they have the required educational background.
Oh, education background, okay.
Or the required, not an educational background,
Okay.
but the required educational background. Thank you.
Tom, did you get on the, you didn't verbalize it, so I want to make sure you got it. 8B, under II, the second one, Mr. Parent brought up planning department settlement. Mr. Madison moved the motion to appropriate $1,500. It was actually a transfer from the
Oh,
reserve
yes.
fund.
Yeah, that's another one I had. I did make that change, good.
Okay.
Yeah. And then on the last one, under the executive minutes, Eric, you're right, checking my notes, you're right, there was no motion, because he can't make a motion, it was just, we talked about taking a vote back out into open session, so you were correct. So, thank you again for going through those.
So I just, before, and then I'll make the motion to accept them as amended, such, but I would just ask if everyone could kind of pay a little special attention to the minutes, because I know we've all been on boards and committees before where maybe it's not as important, but whereas we're the legislative body of the town, the minutes are what's relied upon for particularly the motions that we take for any of the action. This is the official document that'll be gone back to see what that action was. This is the document that'll go back to where they make the adjustments to the budget, where the auditors go to make sure, all that kind of stuff. So we have to make sure that they reflect what we actually wanted them to reflect at the time of the motion. Thank goodness for LCAT, because I go back to LCAT a lot and say, I don't think that's how that went, and I can review it on LCAT. But so, if and it's a daunting task to try to capture everything that we that we do. But so please, by all means, if you guys have any others add additions or changes, chime up. So with that, I make a motion to accept the minutes of July 12th, 2016 meeting as amended.
Second. So moved.
Second.
Moved and second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Now we have to, did you have changes to the executive meeting?
He
Session
did,
minutes?
yeah.
So
Yeah, he made, he just outlined it for us.
So we want to make, I'll entertain a motion for accepting the executive session minutes as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Those are done. System. Non-criminal disposition. Bob, can you go over this, the non-criminal disposition?
Certainly. I included this in the board's packet at the suggestion of the assistant town clerk. She was aware that the council has created a bylaw committee and called to my attention that there is a bylaw under Mass General law that the town has not adopted in the past relative to term is non-criminal disposition, but it's basically the ability to not only issue penalties, but collect penalties and the process by which you can do that. And she felt that it was good, would be good for the council's bylaw committee to put that on the table, so that's why it's there.
Speaking of bylaw committee, can you just jump to that for a minute? I know we're not like going right here in order, but Mike, can you go over what?
Yeah, in reference to, we spoke briefly on it last week, I believe it's, Article 10, Section 2. By August 1, we need to have a committee that consists of 7 members. It's suggested by the charter that at least 2 of those members come from the charter, if able. So I talked to numerous people around the town, and I have put a list together. And it was also posted, and a couple additional names have come in since then. And I guess we need to committee it and vote on it so that we have this committee in place by August 1 to meet the deadline. I can give anybody a brief scenario on the candidates that I spoke to if any additional information is needed prior to deciding on how we pick those candidates.
How many total candidates do you have?
9.
Let's see, 9.
There's 9 and two that came in over the last day or two after we had.
Yeah, I mean, I put a lot of effort into trying to find as much diversity as I could to put that board together. So that, I mean, it is going to be quite a task. Once the committee's put together, I would ask that we get 7 hard copies of the bylaws to distribute amongst the selected candidates. And that maybe, Tom, you could possibly send her a letter out, thanking them for wanting to serve in that capacity. And I don't believe green cards would be necessary in this position.
So the names are. You sent an email, right, Mike?
I didn't get it.
I emailed, I believe I emailed the names to you, because we were the ones at the last meeting that said we were going to take this task up of selecting people. So, would you like me to read the names?
Could you? I'm looking for the thing now. Yeah.
Okay, for those of you that don't have the email, I spoke with Marilyn Richards, who we had the pleasure of joining us this evening. Larry Levine, and I don't believe I really need to speak on qualifications of those 2 candidates. They're very well known. The third name is Pete Levesque. I don't know how many of you people actually know Pete, but brief description, he is an environmental engineer. He's provided services in his community for 25 years plus. He is a resident, and I would find him very instrumental in participating and being able to review those bylaws that pertain to his level of expertise. I'll jump down the list to George Kingston as well, because him and George will share some of the same characteristics. I spoke with Tom O'Connor, who, again, as you all know, is on the Charter Commission, and Ray Miller, Bill Fonseca from the school committee, and Ralph Page expressed interest, and the last candidate I believe that called in today was Anthony
Deanne.
Deanne.
Anthony Deanne, who ran for council, actually called today. Had a couple of things that he wanted to talk about, but one of the things was he wanted to make sure that we were aware that he was interested in serving on any sort of committee, and I said, well, the bylaw committee's up, we're probably gonna talk about it tonight at the meeting, depending on length of time and whatnot. So I told him that I would add his name to the list, and, we would see how it goes, because we kind of, originally we had only 7, but now we have a couple more, so I'm thinking if we maybe just go down the list and.
Got a quick question. So
We'll do this now.
tremendous time commitment.
We can do it.
Are all of them
I
able
just
to,
jumped to it because he was out for the other
meet
thing.
regularly?
Jump back to it.
Is that something that?
No, great question.
No, you can do it.
Most of them are, but Ralph, as you know, serves on our planning board. He chairs that committee right now, and his timing or time is not as available. He doesn't have the available time. He has many pokers in the fire right now, including this is a very busy time of year for him with his landscape business.
So realistically, that would leave us with 8.
I mean, with the exception of Mr. Levesque, I think I know, and Mr. Danini, I think I know everyone else on, there's not a bad name, there's not a name there I couldn't
Right.
endorse, I couldn't support. I hate saying no to somebody, but I just looked in the charter because
It's
I
specifically
wanted,
7,
it does
though. It's
say
not-
7, yeah, it does.
It's not 7 or more.
It does, right, it doesn't say at least.
I looked at
There
that
are
too.
other committees that they can put their hat in the ring for as well.
The only,
Is it possible to do a 7th with an alternate? Is that allowed?
doesn't say you
Then they
can't.
wouldn't have the benefit of all the.
Yeah.
Well, they attend all the meetings if they so choose, but they don't have a voice unless.
One drops out.
Right, I think that's a
No,
good.
I'm just saying, we got 8 willing bodies. I'm not trying to complicate things. If you prefer them, we can vote one person off the island.
I do want to speak for the, if memory serves me, Danini is his last
Yeah.
name?
Danny.
Yeah.
Dan, is he a younger guy?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, one of the things that thrilled me about the election was younger folks getting involved. And, I don't know that he has any of the qualifications that we might be looking for, but I think we need to encourage the younger people getting involved and working with the folks that have been around for some time, learn from them, mentor. I just would like to see us encourage that. Maybe that would be the ideal position for somebody brand new like that, is an alternate to work with them. I don't know. I don't want to tell the guy no.
Yeah.
I did get to know him. I was.
Yeah, I did too.
I was next to him in the kind of meet and greet and next to him on election day and talked to him quite a bit. See that he's in school for political science, and for someone of his age, he's very worldly.
He is.
He's been around. He's been deployed. Doesn't act like someone like 23.
No, he's a very mature 23.
And,
Very level-headed.
You know, so I don't know how we.
Well, if we don't feel the need to have anyone on our board on this committee, we've got 7 and an alternate right there. If we discount Ralph because of his time constraints, so.
I don't think any of us were being considered, were they?
Well, no, but we could put up to 2 in theory of.
Like that 2 from
I
the
did-
Charter Commission.
I did.
Or was it
I'm
Charter
sorry?
Commission or?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
charter.
Oh, I'm
it's
sorry,
charter
I'm sorry,
commission,
okay.
yeah.
The way this would pan out now, there are, Marilyn and Pete weren't part of the Charter Commission. So those are your 2 names. The other 5 members, or I should say 7 if you keep Ralph and Anthony in the mix. Anthony would not be part of the charter either, but Ralph would be.
Right.
So,
Right, but
There's
you have
time
plenty from the
commitments.
Charter Commission there. George
Right.
Kingston was on the Charter Commission, Tom
Yeah.
O'Connor was,
Yeah.
Ray Miller was, Bill Fonseca, you have plenty there that.
exactly.
So does it, and once again, with
And
Ralph.
George is fine time-wise too, and he's retired, so he's on planning and he's on conservation, so
Right.
he's still okay. Understood.
So if we discount Ralph because of his time problems, like I said,
There's your
we've got 7 more.
and
So,
I think that's a good idea. Like you said, you wanna keep them interested.
I think we need to encourage,
That was one of the
folks
nice
to
Look
get
at some of the other
involved.
committees that we're gonna have coming
Yeah.
up.
Couldn't they
know.
participate? I mean, if that group's getting together, once it's formed, can't anyone, if they want to tag along, and is there any provisions that stop them from doing that to get an education to prepare them for a year out even,
Right.
When a committee's reformed, I mean, how often are we gonna revisit these bylaws? Would it be annually?
Now, like, the next one is the
Every
debt,
10 years
is the debt committee.
under the charter.
Is that one already filled up? That's everyone's.
That's
It
it.
is.
That committee's
That's
full.
Dawn Starks.
Okay, that one's
and,
already full. Okay,
Russ
that's Dawn
Denver.
Starks one, all right.
That's
And
the
that's
only
not to say that
reason
we're
I
not
didn't
gonna-
approach them, because they're already occupying the
And that's
seat.
not to say that there's not gonna be other committees, but I think if you give the kid a shot to do the alternate piece, he gets to
Mhm.
learn a lot about the
Yeah.
bylaws. Just one thing I thought was good for him when I had the conversation with him was A, that he's young, B, he's got political aspirations. Obviously, he was out there with the rest of us trying to get a seat here, right? And so to give him a little more exposure to town rules, bylaws, so on and so forth, I think that's an opportunity for him. Again, he gets to learn from some people that have some deep experience in town government, and, you know, he still gets to be part of it.
Yeah, I think it's important to
So
start
would we
bringing
make,
people up.
are you
Make it
recommending making Ralph and Anthony an alternate?
No, I'm recommending going with,
We're recommending not having Ralph on it.
Okay.
Because of
Right.
his time constraints.
Uh-huh.
Having 7 and having Anthony the alternate.
Oh, one alternate.
right,
Yeah.
7, 1 alternate.
Okay.
So it would be everybody, Marilyn, Larry, George, Tom O'Connor, Ray Miller, Pete Levesque, Bill Fonseca, and then Anthony Deaney as the alternate.
So,
And we can assign Marilyn as his mentor.
Okay.
You got a lot of jobs, Marilyn.
He's a good Republican, I think you'll like him.
Is that a country?
So I'll make a motion that the bylaw review committee be composed of the following individuals: Larry Levine, Marilyn Richards, George Kingston, Tom O'Connor, Ray Miller, Pete Levesque, Bill Fonseca, and Anthony Deaney as the alternate.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any conversation? Any discussion?
One question, clarification, if you wouldn't mind, to the
Go
chair.
ahead.
It's my understanding that this is the what we refer to as the
General bylaws, yes.
There's been some confusion.
Yeah, no, it's general bylaws, not the zoning bylaws. We're not, okay, the people have a heart attack if you say that. So it's general bylaws, just to be clear. Any discussion?
Just who did Anthony reach out to?
He reached out to me this morning.
Okay, well, would you be able to communicate with him?
Yeah.
And maybe Tom can follow up with
Yeah,
a
I'll
letter
call
as
him.
well, so.
I told him I would call him
I
back.
just think it would be a nice gesture.
Yeah, I
so.
told him I would call him back tomorrow because I told him we were gonna discuss it tonight. But again, with the names and how it was gonna work out, I wasn't 100% sure, so. That being said, I'll take care of that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Very good.
I'll just add that when we sent the correspondence off to the debt committee,
Review.
we included the section of our rules that we've adopted on ad hoc and appointed committees, so they're aware of the rules that they have to follow. And I would suggest we do the same with this, that accompanies their letter of appointment.
Now we're back to B, 8B. It's a letter of concern for the pilot agreement of potential medical facility development on the corner of, that's Chestnut and Dwight, right, Bob?
No, that's,
Chestnut, Dwight, Shaker, Maple.
Right.
Yes,
through the chair, can I ask Bob,
Yeah.
I think I read in last week's, minutes that there's, how many acres are in each town? Is it 7 in Long Meadow and 13 in East, or?
You're correct, there's 13 east.
And that's gonna be all new building, new construction, or is the 13 the nursing home or the facility that's there now?
The, if I can take a moment, the project right now is still in the conceptual phase.
Yeah.
The phasing thing right now is working with the two communities to see if East Long Meadow and Long Meadow can work together towards permitting what would be a single facility as opposed to two discrete facilities. What's been put on the table right now would be a reconstruction of the skilled nursing facility that currently exists there, some addition of beds, possibly some assisted living facilities within the East Long Meadow piece. There's been some discussion that that may actually be for a for-profit venture, so there may be a portion of the East Long Meadow property that is taxed and a portion that may remain as nonprofit, and that's really the pilot discussion. Ms. Saulnier put it on the table really just to get the issue out there, and I spoke to her earlier this week and assured her that we've spoken those words in discussions. It's very early, but it's very much in everybody's mind that the town needs to find a way to make this beneficial to the town as well as to the project.
Listen, it's a great point, and as I'm reading this, I appreciate you bringing it to our attention. Is this all accurate? As we know it, I mean, so they're able to claim tax exempt status, so they're not currently, so is there an assumption because they're creating another property that they would then also keep that tax exempt status? Or is it, because I haven't heard enough about
Sure.
the project and how they're gonna present it to us, but this makes like tons of sense as why anybody would think that this is a problem, why Long Meadow would somehow be able to, claim revenue, but we wouldn't, but we'd have the lion's share on our side. and have to provide, you know, emergency services and everything else, just like any other business.
The specifics of how a project can claim nonprofit versus profit status, I'm not even going to attempt to get into. That's really a question that the Board of Assessors and the assessing department get best answer.
Can we invite someone from that board our next meeting to discuss it?
Yeah, I'd like to know.
Please.
Not, well, a little premature. I mean, the
Just-
project's not even developed.
No, just
We
ask
don't
them, just the
even- yeah, we don't
concept of
even-
it, though.
Yeah, okay, we're getting wrapped up in it.
Or at least get us
We're
literature.
not even, the
Or,
project's not.
yeah, or
we
at
don't
least
even
get us
know
a
that
memo or
At least
something,
get
get
us
us a
some
memo or
explanation.
information.
We don't have
Yeah.
to-
Yeah, no,
that would be
and
good.
just so I clarify that there's really two components of this. There's a Berkshire Health
Hmm.
is currently in tax exempt status, not for a future product, for a,
Given the existing skilled nursing program.
correct. So I would just like to understand,
Me too.
yeah, I'd like to understand more. Like they're claiming a particular status, why, how, and if so, okay. Then I just wanna clarify that, that's all.
Yeah, because as it says, all the other nursing facilities in town pay taxes,
Right.
so.
So it's a great point. I'd like to learn more. If we can have a guest, come educate us, wonderful.
Good.
We good there?
I think so.
Some awkward silence for a minute.
Let's go ahead and switch documents. Nick Bro, he sent an email from Wilbraham asking them to participate in we're gonna do a regional board of selectmen meeting, so this is one of those things that they do, the MMA kinda does a statewide meeting of selectmen. He extended the invitation to us even though the change in government, so if we wanted to have representatives attend, it was open to us even though we changed from selectmen, it was sort of an open invitation to the board members to
Yeah,
attend.
we used to, through the chair, we used to do these, it was supposed to be quarterly and it ended up once every 2 years, or whoever decided to get the ball rolling and have another one. And it's just basically the surrounding communities, it's probably 7 or 8 surrounding communities, and it was beneficial when we had them. I think the last one was in Ludlow 2 years ago or 3 years ago or something, but the question is, I guess, how many of us or who's gonna go and represent? Would it be Bob? Would it be a member of the board? I know all 3 selectmen basically went when we had it for the board, when we had the regional board of selectmen, so.
We just show up and take over the place, cause there's 7.
Because there's 7 of us, we could do that.
Let's do it.
Oh, yeah. I'd be interested in participating, although I'm looking at the dates he suggested, and unfortunately, I'm only available on the October 6th date. So if it turns out October 6th, I can participate. If it's one of the other 2 dates that he's suggesting there, I'm not of town those days.
That's one I can't do either.
Mike?
Where are the dates listed?
Yeah, I was looking
can't.
for the
In the
dates
email,
myself.
from
8,
almost to the
15,
bottom.
or October 6th.
But
Yeah,
bottom
almost
Say
at the
it
bottom,
again?
almost at the bottom of
September
the.
8th, 15th, or October 6th.
And they're all Thursdays.
If I can, just add a couple of comments, but a couple of comments there, it's in a little bit of a gray area relative to the charter. The words in the charter talks about the council having authority over governing or advisory boards of a regional or district authority. Not quite certain it rises to that. On the other hand, I do expect that the council would benefit from participation in it. Certainly, the town manager would absolutely benefit from participation as well, so. I did respond back to Nick. I indicated that I thought it might be, my thoughts appropriate to have a council member there and the town manager there. I don't think it would be either or. I think it should definitely be the
Both,
manager
right,
and.
yeah, I agree, yeah.
We could overwhelm the group by bringing, 7 council members plus a
That's what I
town
said.
manager with.
Get a bus, we got a bus outside, we'll just take a bus over.
To the town trolley.
Yeah.
That's just a function of, you know, I certainly will join the group and go as well, but just depending which day they pick.
Mhm.
It could be 8, 15, or the 6th, or whatever.
Right, so we
Well, I
might-
got a big group to try to
Want to table that
satisfy,
till,
so.
till we, you know,
Yeah, we can table it.
let the interim see if they're available,
Right.
Yeah.
see what
And
date
then
they
if
determine.
they, once they pick the date, then.
Pick
one
date,
of
we'll
us
see who
then
can show up.
nail it down.
Right.
Yeah, it's probably safe though that for
Nice to
Bob
meet him.
to indicate that, thank you for the invitation, we are interested. Who at this point is dependent upon the date.
Yep,
Truly,
that's fair.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
You respond to it for that, for sure.
And we don't mind them changing their name either, the Regional Government Group,
Yeah.
It just sounds like a conspiracy theory.
the RGG.
National Night Out, that's the.
It's Tuesday.
Mhm.
That's next week from today. You get to make a speech. Yep.
Okay.
That's what it says, they're asking for you,
That's
for your
something new.
words.
Well, I know they asked, they actually got some, I spoke with Don Mackey about this briefly last week. They wanted to they wanted to extend the invite, they know it's obviously vacation time, people are, you know, away, but they wanted to extend the invitation to as many members of council, if you're around, to come. I don't know.
I blocked it off on my calendar, I'll come.
I'm not going anywhere, so I was like, all right, you know, that sounds cool. They got some really neat stuff this year, actually. They have a skydiving team from Ellington coming in with flags and smoke and all kinds of cool stuff, so, you know, it'd be neat to watch it. And apparently I have to say something. So,
Your words.
Make us proud.
everybody's invited. So that's gonna be in the high school too. So 5:30 to, I think it's
7:30, I think.
Yep.
It ends at 7:30, I believe, so just wanted to, they just put it out to us to see if we were interested in attending.
5:30 to 8.
Yeah,
5:38.
5:38. The skydivers or whatever at 7:30, I think, to end the, sort of cap off the night.
See, when our local resident Tim Albin is the head of the Mass State Police, we got a helicopter.
Yeah, I know, that's why they were trying to compete this year actually, because they said that the helicopter was a really big
Oh,
draw
yeah.
for all the kids and stuff. So one of a graduate, I believe, of East Long Meadow High School is involved in this group that skydives down in Ellington, so, and he was an intern or something with Don. So somehow there's a tie back to the whole thing with East Long Meadow High School graduate, and he worked for Don at some point.
Cool.
So,
The helicopters, I've experienced them, I mean, it can make one big mess. I mean, you talk, when they take off and people wanna stay close, it will blow dirt for no less than a 200-foot radius and turn benches over and everything else, so it can be, something
now you just
else.
gotta watch for the body falling out of the sky and you're good.
Yeah.
Hope there's a parachute attached.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Excellent.
on to item 9. 9A, old business town manager search.
You just did that.
Just
There.
did that.
Interim interviews are done. Interim council rule.
Okay, did everybody get a chance to look over? So we had adopted the interim rules, and then myself and Mr. Donahue, the town attorney, sat down. He had a lot of really great suggestions. From a legal standpoint, he was fine. There were no issues in terms of things that will get us into trouble or anything. A lot of his suggestions were based upon where he has seen various boards, committees, and councils get hung up on wording that, and so he offered some suggestions that would help, should that occur, help move things along and whatnot. So we sat down, we actually met at the library, we went through the document line by line, and I think I submitted all those changes to you. We discussed each one, we looked up stuff in the charter, we looked up stuff in Robert's rules. We put a lot of work into doing it. At the end of the meeting, we both felt like this was a pretty decent set of council rules, and it was well worth our time to do it. So, do you guys want me to go over and highlight everything, or just discuss
I
everything?
like the
or-
red line that made it so easy to spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great work, guys.
I think it's fair to say that we've all
Reviewed
reviewed
it.
it. I don't think it's necessary to go line by line.
Okay.
I didn't see anything that stuck out.
jumped out.
No, nothing
No.
at all. I mean, I think I appreciate the time commitment, because I know that probably took a lot of time. So thank you.
Like, simple question. Rules 6C, order of motions, the two parts that were crossed off, by default, they just renumber, or they're, you know, it has item 1 and 9?
Yeah, they'll be renumbered when they,
Okay.
I don't even know, you know,
I was just wondering.
yeah, we looked at that in, you know, when a motion is under debate, under those rules, that's why we cross it. It's not appropriate to have a motion to adjourn while a motion is under debate, so that's why we cross that out, right? It was, you know, so, yes, that'll be renumbered, to answer
Okay.
your question.
That's what I was wondering.
The only thing I'll throw out there is, I think I had included it in the email when I sent this to you guys, is, and it's entirely up to you, whether we want to, at this point, still keep them interim, or at this point, adopt them as our council rules. Kind of take that as a thing off the plate. There's nothing to prevent us from at any time from amending our rules.
No?
Right. I'm gonna make a motion to adopt the interim rules as the rules.
I would agree with that.
And I will,
Just sit here.
I will second your
The
motion.
amended second, interim, whatever.
So moved.
So it's moved and, Don, you second?
Yeah, I did.
Moved and second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Now that they're permanent, can we get them on the website so that constituents can see what these rules are?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll also get them to the clerk. He has to, under the charter, has to maintain, this copy of them. And also, I would suggest that, any subcommittee like the boards and committees that we've just appointed, that they get a full copy of them, because there's a lot of stuff in there that pertains to them as well. I'll try to get this done the next day or two and out to each of you as well as Tom.
Maybe also to department heads of other boards that will be appearing before us, like planning and so forth, so they'll understand how we work in case we have a joint meeting.
Bob, once they're done, you probably have a email thread you can send it to
Sure.
all of them? Yeah.
If they're ready for acceptance, I can go ahead, in terms of accepting all the changes I've redlined, I can go ahead and take care of that.
Just that one bullet point items, a couple cross-outs just need to be reworded. I mean,
Okay.
renumbered.
Renumbered, yeah. Okay. So the interim council rules are set, council committee establishment, bylaw review, we've done, debt committee, done.
Yep.
We did.
Yeah, I don't know,
you said
why
the
was
letters
that,
Mm.
the debt committee, we made that appointment, they've all been notified?
Right, I think
they're
it was just an
setting
update.
up the meeting date.
That we notified them.
Oh, okay.
You know, just hey, they've all accepted and we have it, it's official.
How many members are on that? I know there's two from the existing charter, but are there other members besides,
Three former members of the appropriations committee.
plus the, oh, okay, so Russ and Dawn served on that other committee as well?
They did, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Appropriations, former chief Millis outstanding pay.
Is that executive?
Yeah, we might say that for
Yeah,
that.
so what we might wanna do is get rid of the new business and save that for
Yeah.
last, that way our
So we'll
finance
jump-
can go home.
We're gonna jump to, new business, one-day liquor license request, for the Taste of Greece, October 14th, 15th, 16th at the Greek Orthodox Church.
There's like 3 one-day licenses, obviously. So we got $30.
It's beer and wine. Yeah.
Money,
Yeah.
money.
It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the 14th, 15th, and 16th of October. Hours of operation are from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. on Friday, Saturday 11 a.m. until 4. Oh, I'm sorry. Friday and Saturday 11 a.m. to 9. Sunday 11 a.m. till 4.
And, I mean, this has been an ongoing event for years. No change in the type of liquor license,
Right.
I would presume, correct? Same as always?
Yeah.
All right.
Insurance is on file.
Yeah, insurance is on file, already in the office.
Oh.
So I'm taking a
And we,
motion to-
and we can do one vote for all 3?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll
it's
make
one
a
license-
motion
it's
to-
one license for 3 days.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I'll make the motion to approve the 1-day or 3-day liquor license for the Greek Orthodox Church for October 14, 15, and 16.
So moved.
Second. Is there any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The second one I had a question on because, I don't have the letter right in front of me, but it didn't say that the insurance was sent. Or they did attach it, okay, it's just not included in the letter, so, alright, great. I have no further questions.
So now we have the St. Paul's Church is requesting one-day beer-only license for Sunday, August 28th, 2016, for a fundraising event to be held from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. There'll be food and entertainment with a live band, and the insurance is on file. St. Paul's and St. Mark's, they always apply for the same.
Make a motion to approve the one-day liquor license, noting that the insurance is on file for St. Paul the Apostle Church, August 28th of this year.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The E-rate IT reimbursement.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I move to appropriate the E-rate reimbursement of $120,452.20 to fund the capital projects as listed and presented on the warrant as it was appeared at the May 2016 annual town meeting. When we get to the discussion portion, I'll explain all that.
Yep. So moved. Second. Discussion portion is now here, so you can explain it, Eric.
I'll
I know
ask-
what it is, I just.
I'll ask Bob to jump in here if I get any of the stuff wrong. I kinda looked into this, having, gone through the whole budget process this year, as chairman of the appropriations. And the E-rate reimbursement is a federal program where the schools get reimbursed, for updating their, information technologies. This is not the first year the town has taken advantage of the E-rate program. However, it is the first year that we've taken advantage of the type of program for the reimbursement. Whereas we had to put the money up front and would get reimbursed from them. Because that crossed fiscal years, it became problematic for the information technologies, where he used money that was intended for other capital projects, that was appropriated for other capital projects. Perhaps not, maybe he shouldn't have done that, but he did, and the reality is he was using it for the E-project. Well, that money came back, the reimbursement came back from the federal government for the E-rate reimbursement. But because of the way it came back, it now goes to the general fund unless we appropriate it otherwise as the town's legislative body. Since he used money that was intended for other capital projects,
This is to
those projects are not done.
Right.
So, because that money was used for the schools. The reason for this was to get the projects done during the summer months for the schools.
Right.
So, I think I've talked with Bob and the town accountant, and a whole methodology has been come up with to prevent this from reoccurring.
That would have been
in the-
my
in the-
question,
Yeah,
yeah.
in the future. So there's a little better oversight to it, and less, this just won't occur again in the future. However, in the meantime, if we don't reappropriate this, it just falls to the general fund, and all those capital projects that were voted on at the annual town meeting are essentially unfunded now and don't get done.
Right.
So, and this is not, the $120,000 is, again, reimbursement money from the federal government. It's not money that was raised and appropriated within the town's tax rolls.
And the other, just quick note on that, one thing that I do know is that normally there's two different ways that you can take the money back. One is by monthly billing discounts, and one is by a refund, a lump sum refund. And he, again, not that it was, I'm not gonna argue whether it was right, wrong, or whatever, but he took the lump sum, which created this sort of issue, and did the projects, assuming that when that money came back, he was gonna be able to put it back and do the other projects, so.
So if you don't mind me asking, what is the future system of checks and balances that's gonna prevent this? The city says it's not gonna happen again. And there's-
Setting up a separate account for it, so that actually, they can then actually deficit spend from the account if need be, so when the money comes in. But that way he's not using money that was appropriated for one thing. If there was anything that wasn't
Right.
proper, he was using money that was appropriated for one thing for something in which it was not intended, but it gets reimbursed.
Right.
He now understands the difference on that, and they've set up a separate account for the E-rate.
And so I'm presuming then going forward, items that would appear on the capital plan that are going to be paid for by the E-rate would somehow say that, you know, would it?
Well, my motion was to reappropriate that money to the
Correct.
capital project, so that'll get paid from the capital.
No, I understand
But in
that,
the
but
future, I
a
think-
year, for a year
Yes,
from now.
yes.
So
Yeah.
when we see the list
the
of
water and
It would be,
projects,
they would
it's
stay
gonna
totally
look,
separate,
right,
yes.
and it'll note that
Yeah.
though,
So in the general ledger, there's a separate account line
Correct,
item
yeah.
that will say
Got it.
Yeah.
that this is where the money's coming from, and we'll know.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes
The-
sense.
The difference here was in the past, he always did the monthly billing, which worked totally
Understood.
different.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to get everything done during
Yeah.
the summer, he chose to do it a different way this year, different option, not understanding the consequences of it.
Honest mistake.
Yep.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. All right, so that wraps up our business with the exception of executive sessions. So I'm gonna,
I move that we enter executive session for the purpose of discussion of ongoing personnel settlement issues.
strategy with respect to litigation, sound good?
Strategy with respect to litigation, sounds very good.
Very good.
And not to
And
return
not
to
to
open
Session.
session.
No, we're gonna go open session.
We only to adjourn.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, you're right. What he said.
What he said.
What he
Yeah,
said.
I will
What he
second
said.
what y'all said.
Let me just fill out this paperwork there. All right, Kevin Manley, yes. Paul Federici?
Yes.
Kathleen Hill?
Yes.
Don Anderson?
See.
Eric Madison?
Yes.
Michael Kane?
Yes.
Joe Ford?
Yes.
All right.